Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's John Campea, and this is Open Mic. Now, every day on the John Campea Show, Monday through Friday, we save a little bit of time to take some live questions. But here on Open Mic on the weekends, that's all we do. We just take your live questions and talk about all the different things you guys want to talk about in the world of movies. A little bit of television, maybe a little bit of sports, a little bit of other things here and there too. But it's just all of our favorite things. And I'm so glad you guys are joining me here today on this Saturday. We're actually celebrating my wife's birthday today. My wife's birthday isn't actually today, but today is a good time for all of us to get everybody together, and we're going to go out and celebrate tonight. But what better way to start off my day than talking movies with my film fan community? So guys, let's not waste any time. Let's dive right into it. And we're going to start things off with the first one coming us from Ryan Lohner, who writes, Fast and Furious 8. So there's where my disbelief ends. At the least earned face turn at the least earned face turn since Vegeta, a big step down, but thank God for Helen Mirren. We'll always thank God for Helen Mirren. I still liked Fast 8, but I completely agree. It was a big step down from like Fast 5, Fast 6, Fast 7. It was a significant step down, and they really took the whole immortal Dominic Toretto thing to another level in that. I've always hated when people use the phrase Mary Sue, because they either clearly show that they don't understand the material or they don't understand what Mary Sue means. Whenever I've seen people use that phrase, it's like, you clearly don't understand what that means. The only movie character I've seen in the last number of years that really does embody what a Mary Sue really is Dominic Toretto. Now, don't get me wrong. I love these movies, particularly Fast 5, 6, and 7. And I love Vin Diesel, and I love him in these movies. I absolutely do. But let's call it what it is. The Dominic Toretto character is an absolute Mary Sue. He can do it all. He can do everything. He went from being a mechanic who works on cars to being the world's most lethal, undefeatable, fearsome spy operative in the world from nothing. I mean, and he'll never lose a fight. He never loses anything. It is a little bit crazy, and that movie took it to that next level. But yeah, I still enjoyed it though. I still had fun with it. I still thought Fast 8 was a fun time, but I completely agree it was a big step down from the previous ones. James Welsh writes, what would be harder to remake, Shawshank or Shining? I got to imagine it'd be harder to remake Shawshank. Like The Shining, you can redo that. You can redo that. Now, are you going to make it as good as Jack's? I don't know. But when you look at the structure of it, and how limited the cast is and limited the environments are, that seems to be an easier movie to remake. Shawshank, I think, would be a more difficult one to do, but that's just kind of my thought on that. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, really looking forward to Hobbs and Shaw, subtitle, Just Kiss Already. Yeah, by the way, I am very much looking forward to this movie. I'm really looking forward to Hobbs and Shaw. I think this movie's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. I've liked the trailers we've seen already. I'm a big Jason Statham fan. I'm a big Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson fan. So yeah, I'm really down for hearing all this. Okay, let's see. Where are we at? James Welsh writes, just wondering, with the limited space in Hall H, how many seats do press take? It's different than it used to be, James. See, it used to be that in Hall H at Comic-Con, which by the way, like over 200,000 people go to Comic-Con, but Hall H only has room for about 6,000 seats. Might be a few hundred more, might be a few hundred less, but around 6,000 seats in it. That means that 3% of the people who go to Comic-Con are going to get to be at whatever the big panel is, right? So it's kind of crazy. This is one of the reasons why I've been arguing they need to move Hall H out of the convention center and move it into the baseball stadium that's literally right across the street. They got Petco Park right across the street. The place can seat, 40,000 people, whatever. So it's always bothered me that like you go to a Comic-Con and Marvel's going to have their big Hall H presentation, and only 3% of the people who go to Comic-Con actually get to go and physically be there at Hall H. It's nuts. It's completely nuts when you've got a 40,000 seat stadium across the street from you. Anyway, and this is another reason why I think they should just move the damn thing to Las Vegas, because you got far more facilities. Anyway, I'm not going to go into all that right now. It used to be that press had their own line to get into Hall H. If you're a press credential guy, you get to go into Hall H and blah, blah, blah. They changed that a number of years ago now. Just having a press pass doesn't get you into Hall H. You got to stand in line with everybody else. Now, some studios will give special advance. Like I've been lucky enough a couple of times, but it's not the majority of the time. On a couple of occasions, I've been lucky enough that, let's say, Warner Brothers would give me a special pass that I could get in the side door and go in, but that's limited, really, really limited. It's not like anybody who has a press pass gets to do that. But for the most part, yeah. So the amount of press that are in there, it's not like a big chunk of the seating get taken up by the press. It's not like there's a big quarter of the Hall H space is reserved for press. They don't do that. But I'm sure a lot of the people who are in there are press, but they have to get in line with everybody else. Most of them have to just get in line with everybody else. So they have as much of a chance of getting a seat as anybody else does. So I'm going to guess, I don't know, 100 or 200 of those seats are going to be press. But again, they're not getting special entrance. Very, very, very tiny number gets special entrance. So they got to stand in line with everybody else. Anyway, Logan James Kinniston writes, what do you think of Scott Cooper as a director? I've enjoyed every one of his films so far. Do you know anything about his upcoming film, Antlers? I know nothing about Antlers. I know nothing about Antlers whatsoever. His first big directorial debut, though, was Crazy Hearts with Jeff Bridges. And not inconsequentially, that was the first Academy Award for Jeff Bridges. So he directed Jeff Bridges to his first Academy Award. And then he did Hostels. And then there's the other, which was really great about a year ago. And then he did another one with Christian Bale. Something Furnace. Out of the Furnace. He did Out of the Furnace with Christian Bale. I thought that was pretty damn good. He did Black Mass, which was okay. Black Mass was okay with Johnny Depp. It should have been better. But the Antlers one, I know nothing about, but I like him very much as a director, as a matter of fact. I like him very much. Okay. Punto Baby 1 writes, I rewatched Blast from the Past with Brendan Fraser. Oh my God. I watched that once, like when it came out. I don't think I've ever seen it again. It's an enjoyable movie. I smiled the whole time watching it. Have you ever seen it? I have seen it, but it's been forever. Oh my God. That's one where he came out of the bomb shelter, right? I think. Am I getting my movies mixed up? But I think that's the one where he came out of the bomb shelter. Anyway, I don't remember liking it that much. I may have liked it. It's been so long. I got to start getting caught up some more Brendan Fraser. We need a Brendan Fraser, if you call it the McConaissance for Matthew McConaughey, what's this, a Fraser-sance? We need a Brendan Fraser-sance. We need a reemergence of Brendan Fraser. I unapologetically have always liked Brendan Fraser. I would love to see him make a big comeback, and he's one of the reasons I'm going to watch Doom Patrol. Okay, Roman Bryant writes, Michael Keaton's Batman kills no one, bats. Michael Keaton's Batman kills and no one bats an eye, but Ben Affleck kills and everybody loses their mind. I know there's a bit of hypocrisy attached. Now look, I've said this many times. I think there's good discussion and good debate to be had about should Batman kill. And I have no problem with anybody who takes the position that he couldn't. However, I think it's a very reasonable thing that he does. And I think there's good discussion and debate to be had there. But it does kind of rub me a little funny when the people who will always argue and scream about Batman will never kill, they will never mention the times Batman has killed, both in the comic book and on the big screen before. And nobody says anything, but Ben Affleck doesn't, everybody loses their mind. But anyway, that's a topic for another time. Everybody knows I think it's perfectly reasonable and acceptable that Batman in the movie will kill in self-defense in the midst of combat, just like every other superhero. It is not the most key essential element of who and what that character is. He used to kill people in the comic books. So that's my opinion. Now, there's good arguments to be made on the other side as well, and there's good discussion to be had. But that's the position I take on that. Anyway, ZOMG Ruler writes, hey, John, you were at WrestleMania 31, right? Me too. I can't tell you which one it was. It was the one up near San Francisco. Yeah, I was at the WrestleMania where Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns were the main event, and Seth Rollins came out at the very end, cashed in his money in the bank, and won the World Heavyweight title. That's the one I was at. It was the one where Triple H fought Sting. I remember that. Anyway, that was the one I was at. If that was WrestleMania 31, then that's the one I was at. Okay, Julius Goodwin writes, is there a chance Fury might have been replaced by a Skrull in Captain Marvel? There's one still not counted for, and Goose did attack him at the end. I don't think there's any chance that's Fury. I just, look, I don't want to go into any spoiler stuff for Captain Marvel because it's still in theaters and there's still people who want to see it that haven't had a chance to see it yet. But I don't believe anybody's a Skrull. And I said this going into Captain Marvel. Before the movie came out, I said, I don't believe any, because as soon as they announced Skrulls were going to be in Captain Marvel, everybody started going, well, which Avengers are actually Skrulls? And there's Skrulls all over the world now and blah, blah, blah. And what I said, if you guys remember, going into Captain Marvel, said, I don't think anybody's a Skrull. I think the Skrulls are going to be an issue in Captain Marvel, and they will be dealt with as an issue by the end of Captain Marvel. And I don't believe that any Skrull stuff's going on. And remember, your stuff about, I can't go into, Julius, why I disagree with your theory there too much, because it would involve me giving away spoilers in the movie, and I don't want to do that. But no, I do not believe Nick Fury is in any way, shape, or form a Skrull. He's in no way, shape, or form a Skrull. Okay, John Smith writes, hey, John, do you watch Formula One? I do not. I don't watch car racing in any form. I don't watch Demolition Derby. I don't watch Daytona. Is that what they call it? I don't watch any car racing at all. I know who some of the figures are in Formula One because I watch Sports Center. So I know who some of the figures are, but I don't watch car racing. Roman Bryan writes, even Spidey kind of killed Ma. Yep, they did. Spidey killed Ma. Absolutely, he did. 100% he did. Willow Yang writes, happy birthday, Anne. Hope she's feeling better. Like I said, today's not her actual birthday. Her birthday's in a couple of days. It's just that today's the day we're going out to celebrate it. And she is feeling a bunch better today. Thank you for asking. Ryan Lohner writes, Santa Clarita Diet is back with one of the all-time great excuses for an actor replacement, Nathan Fillion, to Alan Tudyk. I've never watched Santa Clarita Diet. All I know is that Drew Barrymore's in it. That's the only thing I know about it. I know nothing else about the show. I had no idea Nathan Fillion was in the movie or in the show, or that Alan Tudyk is coming into I know nothing about that. But for anybody who watches it, I'm sure that probably means a lot. That's kind of cool. I might have to check it out at some point here, Ryan. All right. Arturo Beltran writes, do you think we will ever see Final Destination 6? I don't know. I mean, with horror movies being kind of in a resurgence right now, and you have a well-known IP like Final Destination, like I watched the last one and I had fun with it, but it really does feel played out. Like, what else do you do? It seems completely played out. But again, I'm going to guess yes at some point because, again, there's a big resurgence in low-budget horror movies are having great success, and this has the benefit of a recognizable IP. So yeah, I'm going to go out on a wild limb here and say yes, I think at some point we will get another one. Okay, Julius Goodwin writes, do you think the MCU would be the powerhouse it is if they had X-Men/Fantastic Four from the start? I would argue that having to use less known characters forced them to get creative, and that creativity is the heart of the MCU. And by the way, Julius, thank you. So that's a big super chat. Thank you so much for that, and I appreciate you supporting the channel, man. So tip of the hat to you, sir. No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think what it was they got a guy in charge who had a vision, who had a real vision for what this genre could be and become. Now, let's not pretend like there weren't great superhero movies before the MCU got started up. I mean, X-Men, the first two X-Men to this day stand on their own. I still think X-Men 2 is one of the best comic book movies ever made. And the first X-Men is the movie. When you listen to Hollywood producers, they will tell you the first X-Men was the movie that made all the studios and all the producers go, wow, you could really make comic book movies today and make them a certain way and not make them as campy as they used to be. It was the X-Men, the first X-Men movie in 2000 that made Hollywood sit up and go, oh, wow. And that brought in a new era. So they had X-Men and they made a great movie. And then they made another one and made it great. And then they did X-Men 3, and well, let's not talk about X-Men 3. But they went on to make Deadpool and Logan and First Class and Days of Future Past and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like if they had X-Men, they wouldn't have made a good movie. Well, other people had X-Men and they made great movie. I think the big difference was that they had a guy in Kevin Feige who had a real vision for what the comic book genre could be if managed correctly. And I think that's what did. I don't think the fact that they had lesser known characters is what made them good. I mean, if that were the case, then, you know, The Dark Knight never would have done any well because it was a very well, maybe the most known character with Batman. And they did a great job with Christopher Nolan making those movies, right? So no, even if they had Fantastic Four, which by the way, everybody seems to have this belief that Fantastic Four is some big important thing in the comic books. Historically they are, but remember, nobody was buying Fantastic Four comic books anymore. For the longest time, nobody buys Fantastic Four comic books. I remember a number of years ago, might have been 5-6 years ago, I was doing a mailbag episode and I pointed out, like I brought up comic book sales charts, and nobody was buying Fantastic Four. And I said, guys, wrap your head around this. There are more people watching this episode of me doing this show than there are buying Fantastic Four comic books. It sounded weird, but it was literally true. More people watched that episode that I was doing than bought Fantastic Four. So it's not like Fantastic Four was the holy grail of comic book characters from a popularity and from a financial and from a marketing point of view. Nobody cared about Fantastic Four. Nobody was buying Fantastic Four. So I got to disagree, Julius. I think Kevin Feige still would have been Kevin Feige. I think Kevin Feige still would have had his vision. I think Kevin Feige still would have approached the things the way he did it. Would he have used different characters here and there along the way? Yes, probably. But I think the end result would have been the same. Because Kevin Feige's vision was his vision. And I think he was going to carry that out regardless of who he had available to him. And if all he had available to him was a poor man's version of Batman in Iron Man, then fine. I'll do it with that. And then I'll use Hulk. Everybody loves Hulk. And then I'll use Thor. And I'll bring in Black Widow, who most people have never heard of. And I'll use Hawkeye, that most people have never heard of. And then once we get Spidey back into a deal, we'll use Spidey. And we'll do this. And he just did it. But I still think because of him and his vision and his dedication and his, his guiding North Star, I think we still would have ended up in the same place. Maybe it would have looked a little bit different. But I really think it all comes down to Kevin Feige and, Alan Horn's belief in Kevin Feige and Bob Iger's trust in them. And that's just the way it went. And again, would it have looked a little bit different? Yeah. But would they have had this level of success? I also believe yes. 100%. But anyway, intriguing way of looking at it, Julius. I like that you brought that up. Okay. Magic K writes, will you consider Us a PTSD psychological drama? I don't know what I consider Us, to be honest with you. I know this. I enjoy that film. I think it's a good movie. Particularly the first two acts and a good half of the third act. I do believe the end completely drops the ball. I think the end is a total hot mess of an ending. But John, he was going for this. It doesn't matter what you're going for. It matters what you accomplish. It does not matter what you're going for. It matters what you accomplish. And unfortunately, they did not accomplish a solid ending. That ending is a mess, filled with so many holes that make no sense whatsoever. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It was like a certain part of the movie. The entire rest of it is incredibly enjoyable and exciting and thrilling and edge of your seat and smiles and laughter and entertainment. It's just a good movie, man. Not quite as good as Get Out, but a good, solid movie. I don't know that I would consider it a PTSD site. I could see how you could look at it, and there are aspects and parts of the film that you could look at that way, but they are in the minority, so I don't think I would paint the picture that way myself, Magic, at any rate. Okay, let's see here. Jared Vester writes, you are a vain, greedy, cruel boy, and you are an old man and a fool. Cry towel. That was a great scene from the first Thor movie. Like, when hearing somebody refer to Thor as a boy, I mean, there's only one person that can do that, and that's the All-Father Odin, played by Anthony Hopkins. I mean, that's the only one who can speak to Thor like that. I love that. And that powerful, it was a father and son. The brilliance of that movie is that it's a movie about fathers and sons. The radically different nature of the relationship between Odin and Loki, and between Odin and Thor, and then the radically different relationship between Thor and Loki. It's the type of film that only a filmmaker like Kenneth Branagh can give. And I became completely enamored with that movie the first time I saw it, and I went back to watch it in theaters 7 times because I love that movie so much. And that whole nature relationship and hearing his father. I mean, there's nobody in the universe that Thor idolizes more than the Allfather, right? But being scolded like that, he lashes back and you are an old man and a fool. I mean, it's brilliant. The drama that plays out there and all that kind of stuff, it's so good. And even the relationship between Loki and Odin is so good. And oh God, I love that movie. I love that movie so much. Ben Hayusa writes, John, I sent you emails of 2 Avenge the Fallen posters with Venom that says, eat the fallen. A +1 with Luis as well. I haven't seen those. I generally don't look at my email on the weekends. I wait till like Sunday night when I'm putting Monday's show together. So I haven't seen those yet, but there's a few that I love. There's one that I showed you guys on Friday that Ray made with Korg that says, piss off ghost. I love that. But I think my favorite one I've seen so far was of Happy. And it just said in those Avenge the Fallen lettering, it says, bang Aunt May. I love that one. That was one of my favorites. Bang at Aunt May. That one was really good. So I like that one too. So I have not seen these ones you're talking about, but I will. I'll make sure I check those ones out, Ben. Thanks for sending those to me. All right. Eric Saul writes, even though the film is being kept on the DL, from what the leaked scenes of Joker, I'm sensing almost like a Hamill/Nicholson vibe, the way he walks and runs and even his laugh. What would you like to see? I am not going in with any check boxes, Eric. Nothing. I have nothing that I want to see. You know, I've been talking about this for the last couple of months or so. What I'm trying to get myself to as a film fan, because I have not been like this in the past, and what I'm trying to do in the last couple of months is stop this. What do I want to see in that movie? I'm trying to get rid of that. Because that's a natural thing. Like, we all as film fans, that's what we do. We go into these movies with a checkbox list, a list of check boxes of things that we want them to have in this movie. And I'm finding that robs me of enjoying the movie for what it is. So I have been trying more the last couple of months to be completely absent of any what I want to see in these movies. I just want a good movie. In whatever way the filmmakers and the filmmaking team try to deliver it. That's all I care about. Just give me a good movie. And I won't set up a bunch of check boxes that determine if your movie is good or not. I just want to appreciate the movie, take it for what it is, and hopefully it's good and makes me enjoy my time, and maybe it won't. But I'm really trying to get rid of any what I want to see. All I know, Eric, is that I am fascinated by this movie. Just the existence of this movie I find fascinating. The fact that Warner Brothers is finally doing something I have been begging the comic book movie industry to do for a couple years now. Make a truly standalone film. A film not connected to the shared cinematic universe. Just a one-shot story. Tell those, because that's what all movies are. And remember when comic book movies used to be that too? Remember how great the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man was and Spider-Man 2? Remember how great Christopher Nolan's movies are? They weren't connected to shared cinematic universes. They were movies about characters who were unique in their world. And I love that. Not that I don't like shared cinematic universe. I do like shared cinematic universe, but I don't think every bloody effing thing has to be shared cinematic universe. what happened to just making a good movie, And so I love that Warner Brothers is saying, you know what? We're going to give that a shot. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work, but we're going to give it a shot. And I hope it works because I love the idea of a standalone, singular, not shared cinematic universe, independent movie to tell one good story. And if it works, hopefully they'll do others. And if that works, hopefully Marvel will catch on to that as well. And not every freaking movie we write has to be connected with 5,000 other superheroes all hanging out on every single street corner and nobody's special anymore. Because everybody has superpowers. Oh, cool. You got super strength and you can lift a tank? I saw 45 guys last week that can do the same thing. Ooh. Like, what happened to having... Like, when Sam Raimi made Spider-Man, he was a creature and a being that was unique in his world. And that created this sense of awe, right? But in this Marvel Cinematic Universe now, which I love the MCU, do not take me wrong. But one of my frustration points is that, like, a new superpowered being shows up and it's just, oh, okay, yeah, look at that, a superpowered being. Because they're a dime a dozen in the MCU. They're just a dime a dozen. So I'm totally, completely enamored with this Joker project. I hope it works. I mean, they got out and got one of the world's greatest actors in Joaquin Phoenix, so that's a good start. Let's see how it all kind of comes together. All right, Rory Brown writes, hey, John, do you think parents will be more hesitant to bring younger kids to Endgame with it being 3 hours? Ooh. I'm going to go out on a limb and say yes. I think there will be some parents. I'm not saying, oh, no parents are going to bring their kids. Nah, nothing like that. I think a lot of parents will still bring kids. But I think there are going to be some parents that look at that runtime and go, oh, wait, what? I can't keep little Billy quiet for 40 minutes, let alone 3 hours. How am I going to do that? It might. It might. So I'm going to go out on a limb here, Rory, and say, yes, it will affect some parents thinking about taking their kids to it if it's over 3 hours. Yes, some. But I still think there are going to be plenty of parents who do. But like, for example, I have friends who are parents, and I remember very specifically this one particular movie that they looked and they saw the movie was like 2 hours and 20 minutes long. They're like, oh, well, we're not taking our kid to that. Because like asking a kid to sit still for that long is a tall order. So yeah, I think probably some, but enough that it'll like affect the box office by 25%. Nah, nothing like that. But yeah, some parents will probably be a little hesitant to bringing their kids. And now, of course, across the world, a lot of people going, good, I don't want any kids at the movie when I'm watching it. I get that. I get that too. Anyway, Ryan Lohner writes, Captain Marvel trolls are old news to Doctor Who fans. I loved watching them try to spin a female doctor getting the show's highest ratings in a decade. Yeah, I'm not a Doctor Who fan. I don't watch Doctor Who. It's not my jam. But I remember I was fascinated, but I've been tempted to watch this newest season because not only have they tried something completely new if you understand, like I understand the basics of Doctor Who, and if you understand the basics of Doctor Who, it makes sense that eventually a woman would be Doctor Who. But also because they said they're doing this season in such a way that if you're not somebody who's ever watched Doctor Who before, you can just jump on board with this, and it's kind of a clean slate. So on that level, I've been very tempted to test out this season of Captain Who. I'm getting Captain Marvel and Doctor Who mixed up. Of Captain Who, of Dr. Marvel, of Doctor Who. I've been very tempted to jump on board with this season of Doctor Who and give it a shot again. So I just may do that. All right, J.M. Eister 25 writes, movie Thanos, one of the best villains in film? It all depends by your definition of one of the. Is one of the top 20? Then yes. Is one of the top 2? No. Is one of the top 5? Possibly. And so it all depends on your definition of one of the. But if you mean like a broader net, like top 10, top 20, I'd say instantly yes. It's such a great villain. Such a great villain. There may even be an argument for him to be in the top 5. That's tough, but there might even be an argument for Thanos being top 5. So one of the, yeah. All right, Magic K writes, and first of all, Magic, this is a big super chat. Thank you so much, man, for that. Thank you for supporting the channel. To everybody for supporting the channel. But Magic, thanks for that big super chat, man. When that Endgame Chinese poster came out, people argue Cap should not be in the center. Iron Man should be in that position. I was like, he served the country, protect Earth. Nobody is more qualified than him in that position. Yeah, no, to me, Captain America is the MCU. He is the MCU. Again, Captain America isn't even in my top 20 all-time favorite comic book characters, but he is absolutely my favorite MCU character. No doubt he's my favorite MCU character. And he is the leader of the Avengers. And he is also the moral compass of the Avengers. He's the moral compass of the entire MCU, honestly. And that's why even in Age of Ultron, when they're getting off, they return back to Avengers headquarters and they're getting off the Quinjet. And Maria Hill goes, hey, boss, what about this? And, Tony even says, oh, he's the boss, pointing at Captain America. He goes, I just pay for everything. But he is. Cap is Cap. He's the boss. And that's why even in the first Avengers, when they have that big epic shot with all the Avengers standing back to back in a circle on the street and ba, 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 and the camera rotates around them, right? Even in that regard, even then, Iron Man turns to Captain America and says, what's the call, Cap? Because everybody recognizes he's the leader. He's the leader. So absolutely, Tony Stark and Iron Man might be, I think you can make an argument that they might be the most popular in the MCU. Certainly pivotal and certainly important. But Captain America is the leader of the MCU. He is the leader of the Avengers. He is the moral compass of the entire franchise. So that's why you see different posters and different promotions will have Cap front and center, and then some will have Iron Man front and center, and then some will have Cap front and center, and then others will have Iron Man front and center. And I think there's a reason they didn't call it Captain America and Iron Man Civil War. No, it's called Captain America Civil War. And yeah, so I'm all for it, but I also do like the fact that Marvel switches it up. Like some of their marketing and posters and imagery will have Iron Man in the most prominent position. And then all the other ones will have Captain America in the prominent position. But it always seems to be one of the two of them. But yeah, to me, it should be Cap. I'm on Team Cap. I'm completely on Team Cap. He's the guy who should be front and center, in my opinion. All right, thanks for that, Magic. All right, Pool of Dead writes, Russo said that Endgame had tested better than any other MCU movie. In other news, my mom said that I'm the best baseball player in the world. I know. And that's exactly what I said. This is going back, a month or two ago. The Russos had mentioned, they did say that they have done Endgame with a couple of test audiences saying this movie is tested better than any movie we've ever done. And even at the time I said, okay, that's great. That's great. But take it with a grain of salt. That is exactly Pool of Dead, exactly like what you just said. That's like your mom saying, you're the most handsome boy in the world. You're the handsomest boy in the world. Do you believe that? I mean, look, I'd rather have my mom tell me I'm handsome than my mom saying, wow, you are one ugly son of a bitch. I would rather have my mom tell me I'm handsome. But if my mom tells me I'm the most handsomest boy in the world, I'm going to take that with a grain of salt. She's a little bit biased. She's not exactly an unbiased the commentator for that particular situation of my good looks. So the Russos saying, our movie's the best. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm not putting too much weight in it. It's still a good thing to hear. Just don't put too much weight on it. That's all I'm saying, Pool of Dead. That's all you're saying. But oh my God, can you believe we are less than a month away? We're like 3.5 weeks away, ladies and gentlemen, from Avengers Endgame. It's almost here. We're getting close. Oh my God. Okay. Mike Hill writes, over under 30%, Loki is alive by the end of Endgame. Ooh, 30% is a good low number, but I'm still going to take the under on that. I think there's a reason that even in the posters with all the dusted characters and everything, you don't see Loki. I do not believe Loki's going to have a presence in this movie. I don't think we're going to see him. I think he's dead. I think he's going to stay dead. And I think the Loki series that's coming on Disney Plus, I believe that's going to be a prequel series. Now, I don't know any of that. Nobody's told me that. I'm just, as a fan like you, I'm just speculating. But I'm going to take under 30% on that. Okay. Aaron H. writes, have you seen the new Hot Toys for Endgame? Yep. Thanos has, I don't even know if I'd call that a sword. It reminds me a little bit, it's bulkier, but it reminds me a little bit of the Star Trek Next Generation Klingon bat lifts. Do you remember those? Those are cool weapons, man. They reminds me of a thicker, chunked out version of that. Yeah, it's pretty badass. It's pretty damn awesome, and the Iron Man one as well. But that Thanos one, you know, you guys know this. I've had an operating theory on Avengers Endgame that Thanos himself probably doesn't play that big of a role in the movie. Seeing that hot toy, and did you also notice in the hot toy, he's still got the Infinity Gauntlet on? So I don't know, man. Like maybe my hypothesis of I don't know that Thanos is going to play that big of a role, maybe it is. Or maybe it's just a toy from the 5 minutes that he appears. I don't know, but man, that toy looks pretty damn sweet. That looks pretty damn sweet. All right, Fun Boy writes, if Chris Farley was still alive, do you think he'd be still funny as hell or fallen off like Adam Sandler and being in horrible movies? Oh man, I don't know. That's not fair. I'll say this, and I'm just being honest. I'm not trying to be insensitive. I'm just being honest, okay? When Chris Farley died, I was already, just before he died, I was getting to a point where I was starting to feel like Chris Farley's particular shtick, which was brilliant and awesome. By the way, one of the funniest things in the history of Saturday Night Live, all time. Chris Farley, Patrick Swayze in the Chippendales dance-off. Tell me that is not one of the funniest things mankind has ever produced. If you've never seen that sketch, go watch it, at any rate. I remember starting to feel like maybe his time was running out as far as being really popular with that shtick still carrying the laughs. So I don't want to remove the possibility though that he could reinvent himself. We've seen some comedic performers reinvent themselves along the way, and maybe he would have done that. So my guess is he would not be as funny today as he was back then, much like Adam Sandler is not nearly as good in comedies today as he used to be. Adam Sandler's a hell of a dramatic actor, though. I wish he would do more drama because he's awesome. Anyway, but my guess, although it's unfair to talk about somebody who's passed away, my guess is no, but only because I was starting to feel like he might have been losing that edge just before he died anyway. But don't discount the possibility he could have reinvented himself along the way as well. J Meister 25 writes, have you always been okay with having to answer the same questions constantly? If I ever do what you do, no doubt it would drive me insane. Well, here's the thing, J Meister. And this goes back to, I've got a couple of big influences on me in my style as a commentator, as a pundit. I often talk about Bob McCowan in Toronto Sports Radio, Canadian Sports Radio. He's great. But one of my other big influences was, and continues to be, Leo Laporte. Now, Leo Laporte, some of you may not know who he is, but he is a tech guy. And he actually has a radio show called The Tech Guy. And he also runs a network called Twit, This Week in Tech, where they have a lot of different shows, including like This Week in Android and all this kind of stuff, because I'm an Android guy, so I like that. Anyway, he does these weekend shows called The Tech Guy, and it's hours long and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like open mic in many ways, except instead of movie questions, he's taking questions about cell phones and computers. Anyway, the reality is on that show, he gets asked a lot of the same questions as well, because they are questions that are on a lot of people's minds, and not everybody watches every show. So, if somebody writes in a similar question, and by the way, I'm very lucky. Like, we'll go through 50 questions today, and only a certain amount of them will be repeats. And it feels like we get repeats every show. Yes, but they're still the minority. And I think we're pretty lucky that way. But I don't mind repeat questions for a couple of reasons. One, if repeat questions are coming in, that means that's a question that's on a lot of people's minds. And if it's on a lot of people's minds, let's revisit it again. The other thing is, and I learned this from watching Lily Laporte, and he expressed this once, he said, you know what? Not everybody watches every show. And so there's still a question. Just because we've answered it once doesn't mean we should never address it again. Let's bring it up again. And so, no, I honestly have no problems with the question being asked several times. Now, once I answer the same question, like 5-6 weeks in a row, or like every day for a couple of weeks, yeah, then I say it'll start to get a little bit tired of it, and then I'll make a blog post about it. Whenever somebody asks me the same question, I just say, go and look at this blog post. I posted about it. But for the most part, nah, man, I don't mind it. Look, I'm a film fan. I just love talking movies. And you know me, I'm a huge Star Wars guy, right? How many times do you think I've talked about, the final trench run in A New Hope? I've probably talked about that 10,000 times with my friends. Do you think I have one less bit of enthusiasm talking about the trench run in A New Hope? Nope. I can talk about 10,000 more times because I love movies. I love talking about them. So it's no problem to me. But I appreciate you pointing that out, Jay Meister. I really do. Thanks so much for bringing that up. All right. Mandy Garcia writes, better Magneto, Ian McKellen or Michael Fassbender? It's very tough to say. Look, I'll go Ian McKellen, but understand they played two very different Magnetos. John, they're the same guy. Yes, but they were both Magnetos in very different eras of his life. Right? So the Magneto that Michael Fassbender plays in First Class is a Magneto who is a very different person in a very different place in his life than the Magneto we saw at the beginning of the first X-Men movie in 2000. We're the future, Charles, not them. You remember? So it's apples to oranges. It's very much an apples to oranges comparison. So I love them both as Magneto. Love them both. But if I had to pick one, I'll take Ian McKellen. And I bet you Michael Fassbender would too. If I had to take one, I'll take Ian McKellen. IDK name writes, Dumbo was disappointing. That's what I keep hearing from people. Although I did have a few people write in yesterday to say that they actually quite liked it. But I'm hearing very, very mixed things about Dumbo. I was supposed to see it Thursday night, but Ann got sick. And I'm not going to get to see it this week because I'm going to be at CinemaCon in Vegas. So I don't know when I'm going to get around to watching it. But I'm hearing not great stuff. Jin Yuichi writes, quote, get me Deathman. Is that Mystery Men? Hold on a second. Something tells me Mystery Men, but... Hold on a second. What was the quote here? Get me Deathman. I'm not quite sure what it is. I'm not sure. I can't put it anywhere. I can't put my finger on it, man. You got me stumped on that one. All right. Hector Jeter writes, holy crap, John, did you see the new Hot Toys? Yeah, we were just talking about it. Did you see the new Hot Toys 1/6 Thanos collectible figure for Endgame? That Thanos sword, though, it looks pretty damn badass. But again, don't let the sword distract you from the fact that he's still wearing the gauntlet. This gauntlet that is supposedly supposed to be permanently damaged. So what's that all about? Raises some very interesting questions. All right, Hector then follows up with, any updates on the Vegas meet and greet? No, none. None. We haven't had a chance to think about it. I've been working around the clock. So no, for those of you who don't know what Hector's talking about, both Robert and I are both going to be in Las Vegas this week. I leave for Las Vegas tomorrow night. So I'm going to do open mic tomorrow. And then as soon as we're done open mic, I'm heading to the Burbank airport and flying to Vegas. And then I'm going to be in Vegas for CinemaCon, probably the most important 4 or 5 days in the movie industry's year. I'm going to be there in Vegas, and we're going to at some point try to arrange for a meet and greet. Now, I think I can tell you where it's going to be. It's probably going to be at the Yard House at Town Square. I think that's what the area is called, Town Square, the same big shopping thing where the AMC theater is and everything. Anyway, it's probably going to be there. I just don't know a day and time yet. Well, I need to get my boots on the ground in Vegas, look at the schedules, and then we'll figure something out. But we're still looking to do one. We are still looking to do one. All right. Ryan Lohner writes, Far From Home stinger. Peter applies for a job, and through the door we hear J.K. Simmons' voice yelling at him to get in. God, that would be great. And look, you know me. I think when you reboot something, you don't keep actors. You replace all the actors. When you reboot, right? The one exception I would make, would be J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. That's the one exception I would make. I would love to see J. Jonah be played by J.K. J.K.'s got to be J.J. Only J.K. can be J.J. I'm not kidding. I'm kidding. I mean, he's not the only. You can get 1,000 actors who would be great. But I would say that it was kind of like the one little thing. And oh my God, can you imagine how much everybody in the theater would freak out if it is near the end, he's going to apply for a job, and you hear the voice, get the next kid in here. And he opens the door, and there's J.K. Simmons going, well, what are you looking at? And then screen goes black. Oh my, I'm getting chills thinking about that. The audience would lose their freaking minds. There would be mayhem. There would be dancing in the streets. There would be celebrations held around the world. Oh my God, that would be such a great moment. I don't think they're doing that, by the way. I do not think J.K. Simmons is going to be J. Jonah, but how great would that be? Oh my God, that would be awesome. Let's see. Manny Garcia writes, any updates on finding a new studio? No updates at this point. As soon as I have any updates, I will share it with everybody, I promise. Dominic Francis writes, might be a silly question. Is pacing subjective? Well, everything that can't be measured, everything that cannot be objectively and empirically measured is subjective. Pacing, therefore, is also a subjective thing. Like, I can sit there and say a movie's not funny, but somebody else might find it funny. It's subjective. There's no empirical, objective unit of measurement to determine if something is objectively funny or not. There's just no such thing. Anybody who says there is doesn't understand the first thing about movies. Just be clear about that. So therefore, pacing is also a thing. Pacing is also because, one person might watch a movie and think, wow, that had like great movement. I always felt it was progressing, blah, blah, blah. And another person could watch this felt, are you kidding me? It felt like it was always stuck in the mud. It never had any sense of kinetic movement to it or any sense of momentum whatsoever, blah, blah. So yeah, pacing is also a subjective thing. Unless it can be empirically measured, it's a subjective thing, and so is pacing. Dan Ketchum writes, John Cryer's Lex Luthor is the best thing on Supergirl. I wouldn't know because I don't watch that show anymore. I tried to watch this season only because Sam Witwer was in it. You put Sam Witwer in something, I will give it a shot. Okay? You could put together a cooking channel show of people doing nothing but eating eggs with ketchup on it. And you put Sam Witwer as one of the stars, I will try to give it a shot just because it's Sam Witwer. But even Sam Witwer couldn't get me to keep watching that show. So no, I'm hearing good things about John Cryer playing Lex Luthor, but I have no interest in checking it. I've wasted enough hours of my life watching that show. Let's see. Nicholas Priera writes, I think Superman and Batman are icons that should not be downgraded to our level. There should be no more inspiring heroes than these two. And I think that's the problem that Batman versus Superman faced. Superman and Batman were not endearing enough and inspiring. Snyder's vision did not allow it. He just told us that Superman was a symbol of hope without ever proving it to us. A lot of people saved, but is that enough to call him Superman? Same thing for Bruce. His lack of empathy and detective abilities led him to want to kill Superman. Well, Nicholas, look, I think that's an oversimplification, to be honest. And by the way, well thought out. I think that's a little bit of an oversimplification, to be honest. All right? You can't make the Christopher Reeve Superman from the 70s today. You couldn't do it. We've just evolved too much. Why I think Superman in Man of Steel was my all-time favorite incarnation of Superman was not just because it felt most like this is what would happen today. It's weird to talk about being grounded when you're talking about an alien with the power of the gods who drops from the sky into a farm in Kansas and grows up to be the Superman. It's weird to talk about being grounded when you're talking about that ludicrous setup. But in the midst of that ludicrous setup, there's something about Man of Steel where it felt like this boy who, and I love that they explored for a while, not just, hey man, realizing I'm Superman, but what would it have been like for him as a kid? Like it's difficult enough feeling as a kid like you have a place. But when you realize you are so objectively different from every other kid, and you face challenges that no other kid, and you face, issues that no other kid will ever have, and then finding out your parents aren't your parents, which is something that a number of kids do have to deal with, compounded with the fact that blah, blah. I mean, I just remember that scene when Clark is like, can't we just keep pretending that I'm your son? Oh my God. And then, Jonathan Kent wraps him up in his arms on the brink of tears and saying, you are my son. Oh my God. That is look, I'll tell you right now, that is one of the greatest scenes in any comic book movie ever. One of the greatest scenes in any comic book movie ever. And it had nothing to do with superpowers, and it had nothing to do with giant monsters, and it had nothing to do with explosions, had nothing to do with superpowers, it had nothing to do with some giant fight. It was a kid saying to his dad, whose heart is broken, and saying, can't we just keep pretending that I'm your son? And the dad looking at him, and that almost breaks him, and holds him tight and says, you are my son. Oh my God, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. It is one of the most singularly beautifully crafted scenes in comic book movie history. It's amazing. And it is that attention to character, and it's that attention to the dynamics of relationships that I believe kind of were marinated across all of Man of Steel, including when Clark gets older. And, after watching his dad sacrifice himself, not just to keep him safe, but to keep his secret safe, Pa Kent would rather die than let his son's secret be exposed to the world when his son wasn't ready for that yet. Oh my God. There's some people who talk crap on the tornado scene. Screw you. I love that scene. It's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things about that movie. When he would rather die than let his son's secret be exposed to the world, a secret he knew eventually would be exposed anyway, but his son wasn't ready for that secret to be exposed, and he would rather die than have his son be put in that situation. That movie's so freaking brilliant. Man of Steel is so fucking good. Anyway, just when I start thinking about that movie, man, my blood just starts to pump. It's so good. But anyway, so now, and this all goes to what it is you're talking about here, Nicholas. So now he begins his journey of discovering, well, what does this mean? My father, Pa Kent, my father wanted me to be this, to look out for that, to understand what I'm going to be to this world. But then he finds out, also earlier in life, that he's an alien. He finds this alien ship, and he finds this holographic image of his biological father, who has these messianic kind of aspirations for him, and he's trying to figure all this out. Now, in the midst of trying to figure out this paradoxical kind of destiny that he may or may not have, depending on which father's visions he has, he's also discovering levels of power he never knew he even possessed. He's finding new benchmarks of his strength and speed, and that he can fly. What? He can fly. And in the midst of all of that, Kryptonians come to Earth seeking to destroy the world and wipe out all human life. A humanity that he was adopted into, but that he accepted as his own, even though he was so radically different from the rest of them. If that doesn't talk about hope, if that isn't a symbol, if that isn't the icon that is Superman, then I simply don't know what is. I am always so floored by what Zack Snyder did with that character in that moment in that movie to make him feel unlike any other Superman we've ever had, and yet feel like the complete embodiment of who and what Superman is all at the same time. Now, Zack Snyder brought that same kind of idea about what would this character actually be in this world and how would that express himself. I believe he brought that same philosophy to his Batman. Now, I don't think Batman versus Superman is anywhere near as good as Man of Steel was, but I appreciated very much that philosophy that he had and how he wanted to approach Kal-El in Man of Steel. He brought that same philosophy to Batman. What would this guy, from a character study point of view, what would happen to a man if he had the circumstances that he was in and was in the place that he was in when this movie finally catches up to him? Where would he be? What would he be? What would the world around him be? And he made it a character study instead of a study in stereotypes, right? Instead of making Batman versus Superman a study in stereotypes, he decided, not as effectively as he did in Man of Steel, I grant you that, but he decided to make that as much a character study as anything else. And then how do these diametrically seemingly opposed beings that come out of these character studies, how do they then interact with one another? How do they view each other? And I really appreciate it. Again, executed nowhere near as well as he did it in Man of Steel. I acknowledge that. But I still believe in the philosophy that he brought to it. And that's why I think Batman, in Batman versus Superman, is the single most accurate representation of Batman we've ever had on film. Because Snyder decided to go character study first. How would this character look like in the world we are in today? And having endured the types of events and circumstances that this character endured, what would that do to the man? Much like he applied that philosophy in Man of Steel with Kal-El, he did it with Batman. And now, Grant, again, let me reemphasize, I'm not holding up Batman versus Superman as one of the great comic book movies. It's not. But I still appreciate the philosophy that Zack Snyder approached and brought to Superman, and then he brought that same philosophy to Batman. And in that sense, to me, while very different from other Superman and Batman we've seen, are the best incarnations of those characters I think I've ever seen. Now, what they turned Batman into in Justice League is a completely different ball of wax, so we can, wax poetic on a different time, I suppose. But yeah, that's why I will be the first one to tell you they needed to move on from Zack Snyder. They did. And they should have moved on from that Zack Snyder before they started shooting Justice League. However, I will also always defend Zack Snyder in the sense that, first of all, he gave us one of the best comic book movies, easily a top 10 best comic book movie, in my opinion, ever made in Man of Steel. But that philosophy that he brought to the comic book movies, while he maybe wasn't able to execute as well as he did in Man of Steel moving forward, I appreciate what he did there very, very much. And I still believe there are lessons there to be gleaned. Anyway, I've gone on about this a little bit too long. I need to move on. But Nicholas, I think you laid out a really well thought out train of thought there. I hope I responded with my own train of thought as well. And this is the type of fun stuff I like talking about. This is why I like doing this show so much, guys. So anyway, thanks for sending in your thoughts, Nicholas. I really appreciate it, man. Okay, let's see. Senpaigar writes, just watched the new Jumanji. Man, it was good. Jack Black was great. He stole that show, in my opinion. Jack Black stole the show. When they are teaching, Jack Black to pee, and later, these things are crazy. Look, going into that Jumanji movie, I already knew I love Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I think Jack Black can be really good. I think Kevin Hart's really funny. So I had some hopes for it. That movie was way better than I thought it had any business being. Like, I thought Jumanji was way better than it had any business being, to be honest with you. But Jack Black playing a teenage girl trapped in that man's body, the way Black played it was hilarious. And yes, I completely agree with you. That scene with her with him trying to pee, and these things are crazy. I just about lost my shit, man. I just about lost it. That scene was great. I'm glad you finally had a chance to watch this in Pygar. All right. Let's see. Nicholas follows up again with, the face-to-face was based on the stupidity of the characters. A Superman who speaks and a detective Batman would have completed the film in 20 minutes. I disagree. Not with the way that it was set up. I disagree. And by the way, you notice that in that film, Like, Batman eventually does figure it all out. He puts all the pieces together. But he's been a little bit obsessed since he watched cities get destroyed by a godman who came down from outer space. And I think, Nicholas, there's a lot of people who just brush that aside. Can you imagine what would happen in our world? Because remember, when Man of Steel happens, this isn't like the MCU, where it's like, oh yeah, we're just used to having 50,000 superheroes in every single 7-Eleven everywhere you go. No, this was something completely outside of the world's experience. These god men descending from the heavens and wrecking havoc. That would change everything about our world. If that happened tomorrow, that would change everything, and it would change everyone. Everything and everyone would be completely different. And I think people underestimate that extremely, extremely when they try to evaluate what happens after it. It's, yeah, well, we see big fights and explosions in these comic book movies. It doesn't mean anything, but in that world. And I like the way Batman vs. Superman starts. Was the day the world met the Superman. It was in the midst of fire and destruction and power and danger and almost extinction. And that's the world that everybody saw. And that's the world that Bruce Wayne was right in the middle of, watching people die, having one of his own friends die, his own building destroyed, and holding on to a little girl weeping over the loss of her mother, and understanding the true psychology of Batman as an avenging angel. I mean, that, oh my God, the best part of Batman versus Superman was that time when he's holding the little girl and he looks up to the heavens to where Superman and Zod are fighting it out. And that look in Ben Affleck's eyes, that was Batman. That was Batman. And I loved it, and I absolutely loved it. Anyway, Jared Vester writes, do you think Loki really wanted Thor dead? No. Nah. It's kind of in the same way that I don't think down deep he really wanted... I don't think deep down obviously he didn't want Odin dead. All he really wanted was Odin's approval. I think to some degree that he wanted that as well. Now, did he, in his temper tantrum-like state, like in the first Thor, he did unleash the Destroyer to try to kill him, right? But he always had second thoughts about it. Anyway, one of the reasons why I really like the Loki character. Hector Jeter writes, can you imagine a fight with Kratos fighting the Leviathan axe and Thor with Stormbreaker, the God of War versus the God of Thunder? That would be epic. I think it would be a short fight. I think Thor wins that fight pretty easy, but that would be fun to see. God of War is pretty awesome, particularly the newest incarnation of it. Hurry ahead, boy. Anyway, that's pretty awesome. It would be a cool fight to see, but I think this Thor, this movie Thor, not the Thor that shows up at the end of God of War, but the movie Thor, I think, wins that fight pretty easy, but still, that would be pretty epic to see. All right, Pygar writes, after Snoke scolds Kylo at the start of The Last Jedi, do you think that what Han told Kylo on the walkway in The Force Awakens played a role in Kylo deciding to kill Snoke? I don't know. See, I've had that discussion before. And I think, honestly, it didn't. Look, now you can debate, oh, but it's Sith and it's not Sith and all that kind of, fine. But in the history and in the tradition of the Sith and dark side, whatever, remember, what is the rule of two? Not that they were necessarily going by the rule of two at the time, but what is the rule of two? One, to possess the power, one, to crave it. Right? It is in the nature of the dark side and of the Sith that the apprentice, they are destined to murder their master. The murderer possesses the power, the apprentice to crave the power. Kylo ultimately wanted it his way. And I don't think it was a sentimental, oh, you made me kill my dad, now I want to kill you. No, it wasn't that. I think killing his own father is what cemented him in his path on the dark side. That's cemented. That was his come to Jesus moment. He chose the dark side. And I think that moment is what really solidified it, that he was at some point going to now kill Snoke, because that's what they do. That's what the dark side does. You know, it is the rule of two. Even if they weren't specifically Sith, it's still the rule. It's the whole philosophy behind it. The apprentice at some point is going to kill the master and take the power. And, you know, hey, Snoke to him was an idea of the old way. Han was the old way to him too. He wanted to kill it all, let it all die. It wasn't about, oh, you made me kill my daddy, now I wish I hadn't done that. No, it wasn't that. It was completely the opposite. It's like, yeah, I killed my dad. And as an extension of that, I got to kill you too, because you're all the old way. You're the old way. It's time to let the old things die, and that includes you, Snoke. It included my dad, and it includes you. So, yeah, I kind of see it that way, Senpai Guy. Or at least that's the way I look at it. ZOMG Ruler writes, I honestly thought Aquaman was better than Captain Marvel. Why you disagree? Oh, yeah, no. Aquaman isn't as good as Captain Marvel. It's not. I like Aquaman. You guys know I like Aquaman. I had a good time with it. I thought Captain Marvel was significantly better in a number of areas. But I'll tell you what. As much as I like Captain Marvel, I think Shazam is better. And that's not me casting any shade on Captain Marvel. That's me not casting any shade on Aquaman. I like these movies. I like these movies very much. You guys know I like these movies very much. But oh my God, I cannot wait to see Captain Marvel again. I cannot wait to see Captain Marvel again. Or Shazam, I should say. I cannot wait to see Shazam again. So yeah, to me, and I like Aquaman, but to me, it goes Shazam, Captain Marvel, Aquaman. And because I thought Wonder Woman was still better than Aquaman. I thought, so when I saw Aquaman, I thought, yeah, I actually quite enjoyed Aquaman. Aquaman's really good. It's fun. I went to see it in the theaters 3 or 4 times. But I didn't think it was quite as good as Wonder Woman, directed by Patty Jenkins. And I, at the minimum, right now, I kind of have Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel neck and neck. I kind of have those two neck and neck. I'm still not quite sure which one I prefer more, that Patty Jenkins Wonder Woman or Captain Marvel. But since I thought Wonder Woman was better than Aquaman, that means I also believe Captain Marvel is better than Aquaman, and I do. There's a few weaknesses in Aquaman that should have been addressed, but whatever. But I actually think Shazam might be better than all of those. I think Shazam's better than all those. So anyway, yeah, take that for what it's worth. Damian Davies writes, only time an intermission on a film I saw in the UK was Jurassic Park 2. It was when trailers go over the cliff and Goldblum says, Mommy's very angry. That's interesting. See, my wife Ann actually brought up an interesting point the other day. So, believe it or not, my wife doesn't watch all the John Campea shows. I know, horrifying. Anyway, so Ann and I were driving in the car the other day, and the runtime of what it looks like Endgame is going to be over 3 hours. And Ann just kind of said, man, we need to have intermissions again in movies. I'm like, that is something we've been talking a lot about on the show. We've been going back and forth. And it's still funny to me that, I mean, look, the audience in North America is always so afraid of anything that's different that they haven't tried before. Because I remember back when, this is only going back a couple of years now, back a couple of years ago, most theaters in North America still didn't have pre-assigned seating, right? And there were so many people. First of all, this is the biggest no-brainer decision in the world. Pre-assigned seating is infinitely better than the dark ages of quick, go get in line to a movie 2 hours early to make sure you don't get a neck breaker seat. As soon as they open the door, run in as fast as you can to try to get a seat. Oh, hopefully it's not in the neck breakers and blah, 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 blah. And try to get one if you got a group of 5 or 6 friends that you can actually sit together and move. Like dark ages, nonsense, BS. It's just bad. It's an ass backward way of doing things. You know, when you buy your plane ticket, you know where your seat is. When you buy your concert ticket, you know where your seat is. When you buy a theater ticket, you know where your seat is. You always, but not in the movies. Nope, you got to line up like cattle. And then when the sheep herder opens the door, go bah, and run as fast as you can in there to try to grab a seat. And then some people go, yeah, that's the better way to do things. I've never understood that. It is the most ass-backward ways of thinking. But when we didn't have pre-assigned seating, and it looked like pre-assigned seating was finally becoming a thing, and I've been standing on a pulpit and preaching for almost a decade now that North America needed pre-assigned seating. Now that's the norm. Now most places have it, and everybody understands that it is a far superior system. But when it wasn't the norm, and I would bring up, we need pre-assigned seating, like all these people go, no, pre-assigned seating is not a good idea. And I'd be like, how the hell is it not a good idea? But everybody's like, no, it's bad. Now what happens if you buy a pre-assigned seat and there's a piece of gum on your seat? That happens to you a lot? Okay. Then you simply get another seat. Well, what if there aren't any other seats? Well, if you were in a movie without pre-assigned seating and there was only one seat left and there was a piece of gum on the seat, there would still be no other places to sit. So tell me again how this is. Oh no, I think but everybody, because it was different and new, was scared of it. And they would make up all these ridiculous fantasies about all these, what if you get there and your seat has vomit in your seat? Then what do you do? Well, then you just tell it to the people at the theater that there's vomit in your seat and you need a new seat, and they'll give you a new seat. No different than if you showed up and there wasn't any of the seats but one with vomit in the seat. You still have no. But still, the principle here is people reacted to it despite the fact that it made a lot of sense. They still reacted to it because it was different, and whatever is different is scary. Now, almost everywhere you look, we do have pre-assigned seating now, and now everybody pretty much agrees, oh yeah, this is much better. Wait, I didn't have to come 2.5 hours early to get in line to hopefully find a seat? Oh, this is great. Everybody knows it's the best thing in the world now, right? But at the time, it was new and it was scary. And everybody made up all these wild, crazy excuses for why this wouldn't work, when in actuality, it made perfect sense. I feel like it's the same thing with intermission. And here's why. An intermission for movies that are, say, over 2 hours and 45 minutes long, there are so many good benefits of that. So many positive benefits. And we've gone over all the benefits before. And much like with the pre-assigned seating thing, we would get, like, all these people make up all these excuses why it's a bad idea, but we'd get people writing in from other countries all the time going, wait a minute, time out. You guys in America don't have we've had pre-assigned seating for 10 years. It's the only way to do it. It's the best. And we had other people who were already doing it, writing in and saying this is the way to go. With the intermission thing, again, I'm getting emails from people, and we've read them on the show, saying, I live in such and such country. We've had intermission forever, and it's great. Everybody loves it. But there are these excuses people make. Oh, no, if you do an intermission, it'll totally take you out of the movie. And I go, time out. You watch movies at home, and you'll pause the movie, go to the bathroom, grab it. Does that completely take you out of the movie? And then my wife, Ann, I started this whole thing by telling the story of my wife, Ann. My wife, Ann, who points out, like, my wife and I are season tickets holders for Pantages Theater. So we'll go watch, Hamilton, and we'll go watch Cats, and we'll go watch Waitress and whatever. And in every presentation, in every show, there's an intermission. Does that ruin the theater going experience? Did that take us out of everything completely? No, it's what they do normally. It makes sense. It gives everybody a chance to take a break. They get to go top off their drinks. They get to use the bathroom. Gives everybody a chance to check their phones for a minute. Then everybody comes back in, sits back down, and they carry on with the show. They've been doing it in theater forever, and it works great. Everybody loves it. But it's this fear that people have, like, oh, because it's something different. Therefore it's scary, much like moving to pre-assigned seating was. I personally think there is nothing but upside to having an intermission in movies that are over, say, 2 hours and 40 minutes long, or whatever number you want to set. Don't set intermissions for 90-minute movies or 2-hour movies, but movies that get up to 2.5 hours, 2 hours, 45 minutes, whatever. Put an intermission. There's tons of benefits. There is no drawback. it's just good for everybody. So it's funny. So anyway, I know that wasn't exactly where you're going at, Damien. You're pointing out something about Jurassic Park 2. And by the way, I do like that moment. Not a great movie, but that was a great moment. Mommy's very angry. But yeah, I just think we need to have intermissions. It's great. It's great. And I'm sorry, I completely reject this nonsense about, wait, if you pause a movie, you get pulled out of the movie and it ruins the movie for you. No, it doesn't. Come on, you don't have the attention span of a 2-year-old child. You have the attention span that you can go, all right, taking a break. Just like when you're watching a football game. Like when you're watching a football game and they have a commercial break, go, no, this is pulling me out of the game. My emotional investment in the game now is completely ruined because you took a commercial break. Is that what happens? No, they take a commercial break. We go, great. We get up, we refill our beer. I don't drink beer, but whatever. We refill our beer, fill up the Dorito bowl. We use the bathroom, we come back to our seat, and then the commercial break ends, we pick up the game again. You know, and you'll have 20 of those commercial breaks in a football game. Are you telling me that we as people have such a short, like childlike attention span that if we took one break so people could refill their soda, use the bathroom, check their phone, whatever, now you got less people getting up and down during a movie? That's frustrating to me. People getting up and down to use and walking in front of us to go use the bathroom during the movies, that's frustrating. You have an intermission and people know there's an intermission coming. Now you don't even have to worry about that. You'll have less people pulling out their phones. You'll have less people walking up and down the aisles. You get to go refill your drink. You don't have to worry about going to use the bathroom, meaning I have to miss a couple of minutes of the movie now. There's nothing but upside to it. And the only desperate, nonsensical objection I keep hearing is, it'll ruin the movie for me because my mind can't handle pausing something for a second. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. But anyway, it's one of the great debates we're having right now. You know, in our film fan community, it is one of the big topics right now. And you know, Avengers Endgame has really brought it to the forefront with the fact that it's going to have a 3-hour plus runtime. And it's a great debate to have. It's a fun debate to have. A lot of people have some concerns about it. I think it's a wonderful idea, and it's going to be a debate we continue to have, but it's one of the great things for us to debate. I love it when we get to have discussions about not just the movies themselves, but the movie-going experience. I love it when we get to have these discussions about the movie-going experience. But anyway, that's just the way I see it. You may see it a different way, and that's cool if you do, but that's just kind of how I see it from my point of view on that. All right, anyway, let's move on here. Angus Dustagear. I'm sure I'm butchering your name, Angus. I apologize for that. Hey, John, I was thinking about who could play the new Wolverine. I say Will Poulter. Not an obvious choice, but I think he'd be brilliant. Your thoughts? Well, everybody knows what my thoughts on this are. I don't care. I don't worry about should X actor play X role. I don't care about that. To me, the only thing to me that I care about is do they get a talented actor? That's all I care about. Because only the filmmaker knows the specific incarnation of this character they're going for in their movie, and therefore only they know who would be a good fit for that. All I care about is that it's a talented actor. So, if I were to wake up tomorrow and they would say Will Poulter, who I believe is a very good actor, then I go, yeah, cool. Then I'm down with that because Will Poulter's a great actor. He's a very talented actor. I'm down with that. But there are also 50 other names that you could mention for Wolverine that I would go, yeah, cool, that guy's a good actor, so I'd be good with it. Like, honestly. I mean, so, again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on your question, Angus. It's just that, like everybody knows, I kind of don't do the whole should X actor play X role question. As long as it's a good actor, I'm cool. Is Will Poulter a good actor? Hell yes, he's a good actor. God, I loved him in Detroit. I thought he should have gotten an Academy Award nomination for Detroit, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's just my opinion on that. You're right. It is an outside-the-box choice. I would have no problem with it, though, if they did it. I'm Upset writes, you got to explain why films like Meet the Spartans and Movie 43 aren't in your unholy trinity. They're crimes against humanity. Yeah, but did you expect anything different from those movies? Like, here's the thing. They're made to be stupid, but they're also made to be stupid and funny. They just fail at the funny part. They're just completely not funny. They got the stupid part. They forgot to make them funny. Well, they didn't forget to make them funny. They were just incapable of making them funny. To be truly awful, though, is when you were also going for something great. Battlefield, like my unholy trinity of the worst big Hollywood wide release films of all time are Battlefield Earth, Catwoman, and The Highlander 2. These are the worst big Hollywood wide release films ever to pollute the earth with their presence. But they were also meant to be great. Battlefield Earth, they thought they were making the next revolution in the sci-fi epic. They thought they were making the next great they thought they were making the next Star Wars. And the guy who directed Battlefield Earth was actually a second unit director on The Force Awakens, by the way. Not The Force Awakens, sorry, The Phantom Menace. He was a second unit director on The Phantom Menace. And he thought, I've worked with George Lucas. I'm going to make the next great sci-fi epic. And it was horrible. Catwoman was an imaginative idea, doing some different things, and that's cool. But again, pollution to the movie-going world. And Highlander 2, oh God. I can't even talk about the Highlander 2 without my blood pressure going up. But, oh yeah, there are plenty of awful movies. But it's the fact that these ones were supposed to be great that kind of takes it to that next level for me. So anyway, there you go. But those are truly awful movies you're mentioning. I'm upset. No debate from me, sir. All right. Damian Davies writes, I saw Captain Sparklefingers at the Cineworld Unlimited screening on Wednesday. Laugh out loud in a packed screen. It is in the DCU as no logo before. Is it in the DCU as no logo before? Oh, yeah, it's absolutely in the DCU. But remember, they're not, right now, Damien, Warner Brothers has already said a number of times, they're not worried about their shared universe right now. They're not worried about it. They are focusing exclusively on standalone movies. They all take place in the same universe, yes, but they're treating them very much as standalone movies. And, oh my gosh. By the way, for those of you who don't know, he's talking about Shazam, by the way, when he says Captain Sparklefingers. You'll see why he said that when you see the movie. It's guy, I've run out of ways to gush about Shazam. It's so good. It's so entertaining. And this kind of reminds me like of the first time I walked out of Guardians of the Galaxy, where I just said, one of the ways I described Guardians the first time I saw it was, it is a relentlessly entertaining movie. And I kind of got the same feeling from Shazam. It's just relentlessly entertaining. I was smiling and grinning and feeling good and laughing and having a good time almost the entire way through. The first 10 minutes or so are a little rough. Maybe really rough. But once you get past the first 10 minutes or so, it becomes a joyride. Just a ride of joy. And I can't wait for you guys. If you hadn't seen the advanced screening already, I cannot wait for you guys to see it. Let's see. I would say, writes, worst production drama, Justice League or Fantastic Four 2015? Oh, there are far worse than those, man. There are far worse than those. Just go back and watch the documentary of, what's the Francis Ford Coppola film again? Why am I forgetting the name of one of the most iconic movies of all time? And I'm suddenly freezing on one of the most, this is going to bug me now. Hold a second. It's going to kill me that I'm pulling this, and it kills me that you have to look up the name of Apocalypse Now. How did I freeze the name of Apocalypse Now? Anyway, I've already gone through about 30 questions, so my mind's getting jarbled at the moment. But go look up some of the making of like Heart of Darkness and stuff like that. Go look up the making of stuff to Apocalypse Now. But anyway, more production drama. I say the bigger mess was Fantastic Four. More drama, because I believe there's still a ton of the drama that hasn't been made public. So the worst production drama is probably going to be Justice League. Out of those two, but there are many other movies that had it much worse. Believe that. Believe that. All right. Jay Bling writes, just watched a Shazam interview. Zachary Levi's physical age may be almost 40, but his emotional age is like 15. Like his teenage co-stars. That is one of the things that made him perfect for this. He has this joyous and boyish enthusiasm and wonder that he brings into things that I think is just one of those X factors that's you can't do without. And that's why I got so excited about Shazam just when I heard that he was even going to be in it. Because casting a guy like him tells you what kind of direction they're going to be going in with the movie. And in doing so, I got really excited because I thought you only get a Zachary Levi if you're going to make the movie kind of like this. And that got me excited because I thought that was the right direction for the movie. And they did it. And he brings that joyous feeling, that boyish enthusiasm. He brings it all to this role and does it super well. And I just love it. And I think you're absolutely right, Jay Bling. I think you nailed that. All right. Curtis Lopez writes, for April Fools, you and Rob should come up with fake stories like Taylor Swift is replacing Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman and improvise. Nah. Honestly, me and Rob had a phone call the other day. And Rob brought up, oh, by the way, so April 1st coming up, we should come up with what our fake stories are. And I'm like, nah. Honestly, that stopped being a real thing a couple of years ago. Because it just got to the point, like 5 or 6 years ago, you could still do that and catch some people by surprise. Like, wait a minute, what? Like with some really outlandish headline. But now everybody's looking for it. It became such a thing that everybody did that everybody is now waiting for it. So honestly, I don't even see any fun in it. So no, don't worry. On April 1st, whatever headlines you see us talking about on the John Campea Show are actual real things. I'm not going to be doing any April Fool stuff. Not that I don't like April Fool stuff, but it's just that we're at the point now that everybody's looking for it and everybody's ready for it. So you're not going to have the effect that you would have had 5 or 6 years ago or longer than that. Now everybody's prepared for it. So I don't really see the point in doing it. So I'm not going to be doing it. Any headline you see from me on April 1st is going to be an actual real headline. All right. DC Patience writes, popcorn. I don't like butter, but hubby does. Am I screwed if we share and I want to keep the bag? Help us, John. Okay. So this actually came up the other day on the show. And let me tell you what me and Ann do. Okay. There are a couple of options available to you. Option number one, I believe, and I got to double check this when I go to the movie theater next. But I believe AMC Theater now has a popcorn container that is divided in two because AMC now has their gourmet popcorns. And one of the things you can order is the mix of their caramel corn and their cheddar corn. And they'll put the caramel corn on one side and the cheddar corn on the other. You could ask, if I'm not mistaken about that, and I may be mistaken, but I think that's what they have. You might be able to ask the concession person, can I have the divided container? So then you can put your butter, your popcorn in both sides and just butter one side. What Ann and I do, and what we've done for a while is, at almost every movie theater, you can ask, hey, can I have a little tray? And they'll bring out this little cardboard box, right, that you can put your drink or two in your popcorn bag so you can carry it all to your seat. Well, what Ann and I do is we ask for that little box, and then I just pour out half the bag of popcorn into that box. And there's Ann's popcorn. Because Ann is like you, DC. She doesn't like butter on her popcorn. I don't know how I married her. Anyway, she also doesn't like butter on her popcorn. So now I can take what's left of the popcorn in my bag or container, take it over to the butter thing, get my butter in there all nice and good, and she's got her box of popcorn without any problem. So that's how we approach the issue. Good luck. I hope that works for you too. Okay. Ryan Lohner writes, one of two. From Masterclass, Werner Herzog saw Forrest Whitaker trying to act with the guy loudly, talking on his phone right in his eye line. He later asked, how did you resist sneaking up behind him and murdering him with a shovel like a coward? Werner Herzog is the best. Werner Herzog is the best. I mean, we talked about a couple of stories about Werner Herzog the other day. I mean, they're two of the great stories. I know I just shared this. For those of you who missed it, two of the great Werner Herzog stories. And by the way, they just announced that Werner Herzog is going to be the villain in the upcoming Mandalorian Star Wars show on Disney+. Anyway, two of the best Werner Herzog stories. Number one, first of all, I can't remember if he's Austrian or German. He's one of the two. Werner Herzog is either Austrian or German. So he's got this classic bad guy voice. I know it's terrible to say, but he's got a classic movie villain voice. So he's doing this interview this one time because he's a filmmaker. He's doing this interview with the BBC outside in some Eastern European country. And as he's doing the interview, you hear this, and they're like, oh, what's that? And Werner Herzog looks down and goes, oh, I've been shot. He got shot while doing an interview, and he's bleeding. And the BBC guys are, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? And Werner Herzog goes, it's not a significant bullet. let's continue. And then he just wanted to go on with the interview after being shot. This is crazy. But there's this other thing. When he was making his classic movie, Wrath of God, and there was this actor, Klaus Kinski, I believe was the actor's name, who was known for being very temperamental on set, right? Like he would just lose his cool on set and whatever. So something happened with some production assistants, and Kinski said he's leaving the movie. He's not going to do this movie anymore. He's going to leave the movie, right? Which would leave the movie in a terrible mess. So Werner Herzog tells this story. He's like, so I went to him very composed, and I said, the movie comes first. We must not do this. The movie comes before our feelings. The movie comes before our very selves. This is not acceptable. It must not happen. You cannot leave. And Kinski insisted, nope, I'm leaving. And Herzog said, I have a rifle with 9 bullets. I'm going to put 8 of those bullets into your head and then save the last one for myself if you try to leave. And then Werner Herzog said he was very well behaved and well disciplined for the rest of the shoot after that. So Werner Herzog says, I'm going to murder you. I'm going to kill you if you try to leave. I'm going to put 8 bullets in your head and I'm going to save one for my own if you try to leave. What kind of madman is this? But it's some of the greatest stuff ever. So when I hear a story like this, Ryan, he says, how did you resist the urge to sneak up behind him and murder him with a shovel? That's something exactly that Werner Herzog would say. I love that. All right. Orange Hand writes, could Captain Marvel be considered an anti-war film? The one character's line, won't spoil who, about unclean hands gave me that impression. Maybe. I mean, it's this goes back to one of the things we were talking about earlier, Orange, where it's tempting to take one segment of a film and then try to say the whole film is a representation of that one segment. And I don't know that that's exactly true. I think it's definitely an anti-unjust war film. I think it's very much an anti-fake war film. I think it's definitely anti-that. It's definitely anti-war for the sake of war. And again, it's hard to answer it thoroughly without going into spoilers about the movie, which I will not do. But I don't think you can paint the whole movie with that kind of brush. No, I would not consider Captain Marvel is an anti-war film. Nah, I wouldn't consider that at all, to be honest with you. All right. Jonathan Maiska writes, I watched a 2016 movie on Netflix called The Haulers with I remember that film with John Krasinski credited as director. I thought A Quiet Place was his directorial debut. It was actually his wide release theatrical directorial debut. But he had directed a couple things before, including, I believe he directed a couple episodes of The Office, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check here for a second. John Krasinski, he directed, like I said, I thought he directed a couple of, he directed at least 3 episodes of The Office. He directed something called Brief Interviews with Hideous Men. I don't know what that one is. And he directed The Haulers in 2016. And that one had, it's got a couple of names you recognize. I cannot remember who. So I'm going to go over to IMDb and check it out. Charlton Copley was in that. Richard Jenkins was in that. Anna Kendrick was in that. But it wasn't a theatrical release. Charlie Day was in it as well. It wasn't a big theatrically released film. And that one was kind of his first big theatrical release film. So there's that. Let's see here. Okay, let's move on now. The next one was from Manny Garcia, who writes, would you want the Infinity Stones to play a role post-Endgame, or are they getting tired, played out story-wise? Some new MacGuffins would be interesting. No, look, again, I don't want to get into a position where I'm making check boxes saying, don't make future movies about that. I don't want to be in that. But I will say my first impression is, hey, in a way, the entire first 22 movies of the MCU have been about these Infinity Stones. Probably time to move on to something else. So, I don't know. If they have a great idea that makes sense narratively and can do it in a fresh way, fine. My first impression would probably be time to move on. Time to move on from them. And I have a feeling, I have no insider information, this is just me as a fan speculating. I have a feeling the Infinity Stones are going to cease being an issue by the end of Endgame. I think the Infinity Stones are going to be taken off the table. I don't know how, I don't know when or anything like that. I just think by the end of the film, the Infinity Stones are no longer going to be on the table. So that's just my guess. We'll have to wait and see. All right. Joshua Howard writes, you think Matt Reeves' Batman will retain a tone similar with Batman versus Superman, or will it be lighthearted as well? I don't think it's an either or. I think this is a both and situation. Like if you look at Infinity War had plenty of serious and some good moments of great humor as well. It was both and. That's one of the things that's made MCU so successful. It doesn't have to be one and it doesn't have to be the other. It can be both. With the success that Warner Brothers is having with their DC movies right now, with Aquaman and Shazam, it's hard to believe that they wouldn't at least put in a good chunk of humor and lightheartedness, but that doesn't mean that it completely replaces any sense of BVS. Remember, even BVS had attempted moments at lightheartedness. Is she with you? I thought she was with you. Like even in that, they tried to measure that in, right? So honestly, I don't think it's an either or. I think it'll be a both. I think you're going to see a mixing of the two things, Joshua. San Salvatore writes, hello. I was wondering why you go by John instead of Giovanni. Good question. I just started establishing myself professionally as Salvatore instead of Sal. Yeah, no, it's a great question. Look, when my family came over on the boat, they, and like a lot of other families that did this, did things and changed even their own names to fit in more with the new culture that they lived in. My dad's name is Pasquale, but he started going by Pat. My grandfather is Giovanni, but he started going by John. And I'm named after my grandfather. And then even though my grandfather's brothers, my grandfather and all his brothers came too. So it was my grandfather, Giovanni, Carlo, Romolo, Sergallo, Vincenzo. Those are my granduncles, right? My great uncles. Instead of that naming thing, he named my youngest uncle was born in Canada, I believe. I believe my Uncle Paul was born in Canada, but they named him Paul, right? They named him Paul instead of like Romolo or Vincenzo or something like that. And if he did name him Vincenzo, probably just would have called him Vince. So anyway, I always, as a kid, even as a kid, they just called me John, little Johnny, all that kind of stuff, right? Even though my name is Giovanni because I'm named after my grandfather. But so anyway, then I would move around. As I got older, I'd move around. I lived in different parts of Canada. And some places knew me as Gio. They just call me Giovanni or Gio for short. And then I remember there was a couple of years ago, I don't know why, I was feeling particularly Italian at the moment. And I decided, you know what? I think I'm just going to start being known as Giovanni. I'm just going to start being known by my grandfather's name. I'm going to go by Giovanni. My grandfather is one of the great men. My grandfather is a great man. I don't get to see him nearly as much as I would like because he's back home. But I'm going to get all emotional. I love visiting my grandparents, my nonna and my nonno. And when my nonno would tell stories about coming over and what life was like in Calabria and coming over from Italy, and like he had to leave my grandmother, my nonna, he had to leave her with kids back in Italy when he came over so he could establish a life here and then bring them over and telling these stories. Look, my grandfather is a great man. My dad's a great man. Anyway, but there was a time a number of years ago when I actually thought about going by Giovanni again. I thought, yeah, I'm going to go by Giovanni. And I changed my name on my Facebook to Giovanni. Blah, blah. But I realized very quickly that wasn't going to stick. Like I realized within a couple of days, oh, that's not going to stick. And then I just started going by John again. So I don't know. I have been tempted many times. I've been tempted many times just to switch over and just, you know what, from now on, guys, like, look, I'm just going to go by Giovanni. I've thought about it, But it's just that everybody knows me as John Campea. So I don't know. It's a tricky thing to do. Maybe I should make that a poll. Guys, should I just keep going by John Campea or should everybody know as Giovanni? I'll tell you what. I know myself. I'm an emotional guy. And I think whenever my grandfather passes away, I'll probably get really emotional and I'll probably change over and just be known as Giovanni at that point. I'll probably want to carry on my grandfather's name at that point. I don't know. But anyway, that's a much longer explanation than you were probably looking for. But anyway, that's the basic thing. It was that we were fitting out with our culture, society. I went by Little Johnny and John and all that kind of stuff, like my grandfather was going by. And so, I don't know. Maybe someday I'll change it. Anyway, Cody Carroll writes, I wish they would use technology to de-age Michael Keaton like they did Sam Jackson as Nick Fury and bring him back as Batman or do Batman Beyond. Yeah, no. Why? Why? Honestly, why? And why not just get somebody else? And you guys know what I think the Batman Beyond idea is a terrible idea. But anyway, that's just me. And I know there are others who would love to see it. I just think it's a terrible idea. But whatever. Not important. Why would you not just get somebody else to play Batman? No, seriously. Why not just get somebody else to play Batman? Look, Michael Keaton was great as Batman. No argument from me. But why would you do that? And by the way, here's the thing. They didn't do a lot on Samuel L. Jackson because I remember watching Captain Marvel and going, wow, you can barely tell he's being digitally de-aged, right? And then I saw Captain Marvel behind the scenes candid photographs, right? With him on set. And it's like, damn it, he doesn't look any different. So whatever digital de-aging they had to do on Sam Jackson, they didn't do much. They didn't do much. Because he looked exactly the same in the pre-digital touch-ups in his behind the scenes. I think a lot of that was just makeup, to be honest with you. I think a lot of that work was just makeup, and I don't think they did a lot of digital work on him. Now, I have not seen a behind-the-scenes documentary on the digital de-aging of Samuel L. Jackson. All I know is that when I look at the photos of him on set, and then I look at the screenshots of him in the movie, there ain't that much difference. They did a fantastic job. And look, Samuel L. Jackson turned 50 years old, and then he stopped aging. 21 years ago, he turned 50 and just stopped aging. The guy looks ridiculously good. But anyway, but again, with the Michael Keaton thing, the question I have to bring up is why? Why not just get another actor? It'd be a lot easier. He could do a lot more things and be a lot more effective than trying to go through this whole process of doing an entire movie of digital de-aging on a lead character when there's no real point in doing it. So anyway, that's the way I kind of feel on that. Jared McBride writes, if we don't get a new trailer for Avengers Endgame this next week or so, I won't be mad. I want to be surprised as much as I can when the movie comes. I get it. Look, and there is a possibility that we don't get another trailer. There have been some that have said we aren't getting another trailer. I still believe we are. I believe that whenever they launch the tickets, they will launch a new trailer. And it'll say tickets available now. Get your tickets now. I believe we'll be a part of it. It may not, and I won't be mad if they don't. That's totally fine. As far as much a surprise as possible, look, I saw the Infinity War trailer, and I didn't lose any surprises in the movie. Right? Really. I saw the Infinity War trailer. There were no big surprises spoiled in the trailers. I don't think there's any reason to assume that if they do give us another Endgame trailer, that'll give away any major surprises either. So I think they know how to play that game, and I think we'll be fine either way. Whether they give us a new trailer or not, I think we'll be totally safe either way. Okay, Thunder Knight writes, WrestleMania this year is going to be 7 or 8 hours long in MetLife Stadium in April, where there's chances of snow, really? And people are complaining about Avengers Endgame being 3 hours long. Well, here's the thing, though. That's not completely, because you got pre-show stuff and all that kind of stuff, too. But also in MMA, right? You've got, when you go to a UFC card, it's actually about 6 hours long. Because the main card is the main part that gets broadcast, and that's 2 to 3 hours long. But there's also like 3 hours of prelim fights that happen as well. Now, a lot of people don't show up for the prelims, but it does go on. So WrestleMania itself won't be 7 to 8 hours long. At least I don't think. But I think the overall show might be, but that's a lot of the pre-stuff as well before WrestleMania begins, you know what I mean? So I think there'll be a lot of pre-show stuff. That's what I'm guessing at any rate, but I don't know. I don't follow wrestling like I used to when I was younger. All right. Kylis Menon writes, saw Us last night, enjoyed it, but left scratching my head about the ending. What do you think the message was? Or what do you think was the message? I don't know. I have no idea. Because it's so poorly put together, the ending. And look, I feel bad talking about how bad I think the ending is, when really I just want to be talking about how good overall the movie is. Because overall the movie's quite good and quite enjoyable, and I had a great time watching it. It's another win for Jordan Peele. But it's difficult not to talk about how they botched the ending, I think. The bad ending does not ruin the movie. It's still overall a very enjoyable movie. But here's the thing. It doesn't, remember earlier in the show I said it doesn't matter what you're going for. It's what you successfully execute, right? You can be going for all the most noble, brilliant things. Unless you successfully execute it, it doesn't matter what you were going for. I don't know at the end of the day what Jordan Peele was going for, but whatever it was, he didn't execute it. Because when you have people walking out of the theater and then sitting down with their buddy for 2 hours listing all the 30 or 40 plot holes that made no sense and created vast gaps of inconsistencies throughout the movie and that ending, then you didn't execute. And whatever it was Jordan Peele was going for, man, he didn't execute it. Because the very fact that you're asking that question kind of is an indication of that. Anyway, Hector Jeter writes, don't know if this gets appreciated enough, but in the Marvel Studios opening for Infinity War was so well done with that deep score and that distress call chills. And by the way, that distress call was actually Kenneth Branagh, the great Kenneth Branagh, who directed the first Thor film. They got him to come in and do that initial Asgardian ship distress call. We are Asgardian civilians. No, it's not military on board. We have women and children here. That was actually Kenneth Branagh. They actually went out and got the Kenneth Branagh to do that. And you're right, that opening, it had an ominous feel to it. It was just really well done. I completely agree with you, Hector. That is something we overlook a little bit too much. Okay. Factual Opinion writes, I love seeing talented unknown actors. It feels more realistic than seeing an A-list actor. A-listers are just too distracting, like Leo, Brad, and Tom. I disagree. I think if an actor's doing their job, you get lost in the movie. When I see Leonardo DiCaprio, yeah, at first I see him as Leo for the first 5 seconds. But then if Leo's doing his job, then all I see is the character. And that's why guys like Leo and Brad and Tom are so good, because once you get by that first thing, it's okay, now I'm seeing the character. And that's what actors do. And I've never felt that. I mean, there are some times like a Bruce Willis when you can tell Bruce Willis just doesn't give a crap about a movie he's in, and he doesn't even try to make it work. Then you're just constantly distracted by the fact that it's Bruce Willis, because he's not even trying to make this movie work. And we've seen him do a lot of movies like that, which sucks because he's capable of a great deal, but he chooses not to do much crap these days. Anyway. So I don't even, but no, I'm with you. I love seeing newcomers. I love seeing people I don't know. Like, I'm watching The Expanse right now, and I don't know anybody. I mean, other than the guy who plays like the leader of the OPA, the Belters. I recognize him. He was in, Sherlock Holmes 2, and he was in a lot of other things. But I love seeing shows. I do get a big kick out of seeing new unknown actors, but when it's people I know, it doesn't take me out of it. Doesn't take me out of it in the least, as a matter of fact. But so I'm sorry you have that thing. But to me, if the actor's doing their job, I get lost in the character instead of who the actor is. But that's just me. All right. Casinema Reviews writes, on Monday, April Fool's Day, you should do the entire show reporting on nothing but clickbait, obviously fake rumors, and then take them completely seriously. Again, if this was 2011, maybe I would do that. But it's just that now everybody looks for them. It's just, look, when you know what's coming as an April Fool, that's not funny anymore. At least to me. And I think everybody's become so aware that April 1st, all the news places do all these fake stories. It's not fun anymore. It was fun back when, You could still catch people at first, and then it would take them a minute to realize, oh yeah, it's April 1st now. Oh, okay. But now, the last couple of years, I found it's not like that at all. The last couple of years, I found everybody just opens up their browser expecting to see what's the April Fool's joke today. And they know that whatever they read isn't true and real. So it kind of took me out of it. So anyway, yeah, that's just me. That's just me. All right. Matthew, big jump. Hold on a second. Give me a minute. Okay, here we go. Matthew Linton writes, do you think Infinity War got a boost from the new Black Panther audiences? I'll say this. I think success boosts success, right? But I think every Marvel movie got boosted from the success of the previous Marvel movie. I think that's true across the board. That's why Marvel has just kept snowballing into success after success after success. That's why we're about to have our 7th MCU film join the $1 billion club. Like Black Panther got a big boost from being in Civil War, which then gave a boost to what came after that, which then gave a boost to what came after that. So did it get a boost? Sure, but I think it gets a boost from every previous MCU movie. This has all been a big accumulation of things. So yes, but that's not unique. At least that's the way I see it. All right, Orange Hand writes, the ball game I watched on Thursday was said to start at 1:30, which first pitch was at 2, reminding me of your rant on movie start time. So frustrating. Yeah, it is frustrating. It's frustrating. Look, I get trailers, but if you tell me a movie starts at 7 and I pay money to come to that theater to watch a movie that you said starts at 7, then why is my movie starting at 7:25? That's something they should address. Okay? I'm not saying get rid of trailers. I like trailers, but you got to figure something out, because this whole thing of you tell me my movie starts at 8:30, but I get there and it doesn't actually start till 8:55 or 5 to 9 or 9 o'clock. Something wrong about that. It is something that needs to be addressed. I completely agree. Okay. Matthew Linton writes, no Boom trailer. Is it a lazy marketing strategy? I don't think there's anything lazy about their marketing strategy so far. I don't know that this has been the best marketing strategy. I don't think Endgame has been the best marketing strategy. Infinity War had a great marketing strategy and affected and executed very, very well. But just because I'm not really on board with their marketing strategy right now, doesn't mean I think it's lazy. Oh, they're putting tons of effort into it. Tons of effort, tons of thought. Believe me, if they don't give us a final Boom trailer, it will have nothing to do with them being late. It's not like they were like, oh, I just don't feel like doing another trailer. No, it'll be a well thought out, philosophical reason. I won't agree with their reasoning, but it's going to be well thought out and deliberate. It won't have, I guarantee you, Matthew, it won't have anything to do with laziness. That's not part of the equation here. All right, Jared McBride writes, where is Gamora? Who is Gamora? I will do you one better, wise Gamora. This is always one of the most troubling lines in that movie to me. I never found that line particularly hilarious. But every time I saw that movie in theaters, people lost their minds with laughing. Like the audience howled. Every audience I saw that movie with laughed their heads off when Drax goes, I'll do one better. Why is Gamora? Everybody howled. At most, I kind of went, one time. But I never found it that funny. But everybody else found that line hilarious. It's always been a conundrum to me. Hector Jeter writes, popcorn question. Here we go. Ever get yourself refills? I normally get my refill after the movie to take home, but during Endgame, I'll use my refill for sure. No, I actually don't. I never get a refill on popcorn. Because honestly, while I have to have my popcorn when I go see a movie, it's a Pavlovian response to me at this point. I walk into the theater, my mouth starts to water. I need to have some popcorn. It's trained behavior at this point. But I never get through my popcorn. I normally only get it through about a third of it, to be honest with you. I normally, honestly, only get through about a third of my popcorn. And I don't eat the rest. So yeah, I never get my refill on my popcorn. They always say, if your Stubbs member get a large, you get a free refill. That's great. But I don't eat enough popcorn. And I never eat popcorn at home. I only eat popcorn when I'm in a movie theater. I'm not a big popcorn guy, except when I'm in the movie theater. Then I just got to have it, but I never get through it enough to justify going and getting a refill. Okay, TJ54 just sends in a super chat. Thank you so much, TJ. Ron Swanson. By the way, guys, I'm going to answer Ron's question, Dropkick Aggie, and Anders F. And then I'm going to take a 5-minute break because we've been going for almost 2 hours. My drink is empty. My mouth is dry. My throat is sore. So I'm going to take a 5-minute break here after we get through with Anders' question. All right. Ron Swanson, one of my all-time favorite television characters, writes, did you hear Chris Evans say he might have to cut ties with Tom Brady if he's a Trump supporter? I think it's ridiculous. You can still be friends with somebody regardless of their political views. Honestly, Ron, I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't disagree. I have friends who are of different political persuasions as me and all that kind of stuff, but I am not going to get into a political discussion. That is, my shows are politics-free zones. I'll talk about equality and I'll talk about treating people fairly because those aren't political issues. Those are human issues. And anybody who tries to call them political issues have a very distinct political agenda. But when it comes to straight up politics, I do not discuss politics here. We're all here. We're all movie fans. I appreciate the question. I do. But I am not going to go into anything that resembles politics. We're all here as film fans. We're going to talk about film and stuff like that. I certainly have my own political point of view. And on my Facebook page, I'll talk about my political points of view. Fine. But here, this is a place for us to be movie fans. And I completely appreciate the question. And I agree with your last thing about we can all be friends regardless of political persuasions. I completely agree with that. But I'm going to end my commentary there, and I'm not going to get into politics on the rest of it. But I appreciate you send that in, Ron. I really do, and I appreciate your point of view on that. I do. All right, Dropkick Aggie writes, just saw Dumbo. Overall, an all right movie, but filled with some great moments. I was surprised how well they got me to connect with Dumbo himself. I haven't seen it. I was supposed to go see it on Thursday night, but Ann got ill. Stayed home to take care of my wife. And I haven't seen it yet, but I'm hearing lots of mixed things. Some people saying they like it, some people saying they don't. Last I checked, it had like a 40-something% on Rotten Tomatoes. So roughly half the critics like it, roughly half the critics don't. Kind of reflective of what I'm hearing from everybody too. I still want to see it. I just don't know when I'm going to get a chance to see it because I'm going to Vegas this week, but hopefully I get to see it soon. Anyway, thanks for sharing your thoughts on that Dropkick. Okay. Anders F. writes, I don't get to watch live very often, so it's a nice treat when I do. Well, I'm glad you're here, Anders, and thank you for the super chat, by the way. That's a really generous one. Thank you for supporting the channel, man. I appreciate that. So it's a great treat when I get to. Been watching since the AMC Closet days and just want to say thank you. You got me through some difficult times in life, and I will always be grateful. Oh, thank you so much, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny. It's never ceased to amaze me what's the word I'm looking for? Not therapeutic, maybe cathartic, that the movie fan community in and of itself by nature can be. And how movies and talking about movies and just having an oasis can be a relief, can be an energizer, can be a distraction, can be a lot of different things. And I'm always amazed how many emails I've gotten from people over the years that will write to me and say, my mom passed away last month. She was in the hospital for 2 months and we just watched your show together. Which also, I'm not going to lie to you, off camera, I'll not forget this. True story. A couple months ago, and I'm not going to give any personal details, but I was here doing my show. I wasn't doing the show. I was prepping one of my shows and going through my emails. And I came across this one email that was a guy talking about had just lost his wife. His wife had passed away. And they had a kid. One kid. Sent me a picture of the kid too. Cute kid. And I'm not again, that's as deep as the personal details I'm going to get. And the guy talked to me about via email. It wasn't super long, but talked to me in this email about what it meant to him to just not have a distraction from real life because he couldn't be distracted from real life. But what it meant for him to just be able to take a time out in the midst of dealing with the most unimaginable tragedy, and you got a kid, and what that meant to him to be able to, not just for me, but all the other film fans, and just take a time out and have a little bit of joy and have a little bit of a smile from either something I said or something one of you guys said in the chat board would make him smile and whatever. And he just said, you know, when the show's done, I just feel a little bit more emotionally capable to deal with the reality that me and my child were now in. As I often do, I'll be prepping my show when it's later at night. It was 10:30, whatever. So Anne was in bed. She was, you know, up in bed reading or something. And I'm not going to lie, guys. I was a mess. I was a freaking mess. I was like, if you can imagine me, like just sobbing. And I got up and I went into, I just needed a hug. And I got up, I walked out of my studio, went across the hall, went to our bedroom, and I was just a sobbing mess. And I'm like, my face is flushed, my eyes are soaked, and I'm just all this stuff. And like my wife, Anna's just like, honey, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I just went over and she gave me a big hug, and I told her the story about what I had just read. And I was just an emotional, complete wreck. I was a wreck for like a good hour. I would just, like, I'd calm down, and then like 2 minutes later, I just start crying. Anyway, Anders, it's always amazing to me that the film fan community, when it's working right, and we don't always work right, but it's amazing to me that the film fan community can be that timeout. I call it an oasis, right? I call it an oasis, but I like the way he put it too, this timeout, that we can be together with each other and for each other. We can be that oasis. And hopefully when we come out of that oasis, we feel better equipped, batteries recharged, a little bit different perspective, feeling a little bit more positive, and maybe better suited now to take on the realities of the world that we live in. And that's one of the magic of movies, and I think one of the pieces of magic of the film fan community as a whole. So anyway, all that long nonsense to say thank you for sharing that, Anders. I'm glad that the film fan community has been able to be here for that for you. I'm honored that I've been able to play a little part in that as well. And thank you for coming along this film fandom journey with us. And I'm glad you were able to watch the show live today, Anders. So again, man, thanks for sharing that. I appreciate it. Okay, you know what? Let me do one more question just so I can kind of reset before we take a 5-minute break here. All right, Brandon Shakur writes, I'm old school AMC Movie Talk fan. Thank you so much, Brandon. What was the most annoying question between the two? Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Robin or Christian Bale, Batman, and Justice League, the good old days? Oh man, those are going back. You know, it's funny because somebody earlier in the show today was asking about how do I feel about questions that get repeated and stuff like that? Oh my God, back in the day, it was, Joseph Gordon-Levitt is Robin and he's going to be the new Batman. Oh no, Christian Bale's coming back as Batman when they were going to relaunch everything. It's like, guys, it's not going to happen. I got to say the Christian Bale one, because like Christian Bale himself repeatedly said, no, I'm not playing Batman again. I'm done. I'm not going to play superheroes anymore. I'm done with comic book movies. He didn't hate comic book movies. He just say, I've done my turn playing comic book movies. I'm now done with it. I've now moved on. I've played my part, and I'm happy I played my part, but now I've moved on. And just people would not let it go. And there were even like sites, major sites, writing Christian Bale is coming back as Batman. He's coming back. And I'm like, no, he's not. Anyway, that one probably for me, sir, became the bigger issue. Let's see. One last one, just because I'm on a bit of a roll here. Beeper 5 writes, why can't cinemas decide when to sell tickets? Well, because partly it has to do with It's part of the marketing strategy. When you put tickets on sale, it's also part of the marketing strategy. It's the studio's movie. They should be allowed to decide when tickets to their movie go on sale. That's their call. I completely agree with that. There are certain things studios shouldn't be involved in, and there should be cinema decisions. But when it comes to stuff like when people can buy tickets to your movie, that should be your call. That should be your call. And it's done in cooperations with the cinemas and all that kind of stuff, yes. But bottom line, if it's your movie and you're the one marketing it and you're putting all that effort into it and you're putting together your marketing strategy, then when tickets go on sale becomes a part of that strategy, and that should be your call. So I'm totally behind them on that. Okay, guys, listen. I am going to take a short 5-minute break here. I need to refill the old liquids. I need to give my throat just a little bit of a rest, maybe splash some water on my face, but I will be back in 5 minutes. So if you see anybody come along and saying, hey, I thought there was a show, just let them know we'll be back in a couple of minutes, and we will be right back. I'll see you in just a spot. Be right back. All right, and we are back. Thank you guys for being patient and giving me a moment to get myself together and all that kind of stuff. Let me just grab this because I forgot to do that. Okay, anyway, we are back. Thank you for giving me a moment to go and refill my drink. My drink is back. Yeehaw. Okay, I'm going to let you guys know that since we are celebrating Anne's birthday today, it's not her birthday, it's not for a couple of days, but we're doing the celebrations today. I have to leave at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. It is now 2:10. We got 50 more minutes so I can do this show. So any questions we don't get to today, don't worry. I'm going to gather any questions we don't have time for. I'm going to put them on the super chat list, and we're going to get to them in the next companion video. That'll either be tomorrow or Monday. So I am going, any questions you guys sent in via super chat, they will get addressed. They will get answered. It's just that I might not have time to get around to all of them today. I might have to put some of them off until I do the companion video next, but they will get answered. I promise you that. Okay. That being said, let's keep right on rolling. And we're going to get things going here again with Hector Jeter, who writes, "Happy birthday, Anne." I will pass that along to her. When you go to premieres and press screenings, do you get assigned seats or is it first come, first serve? Good question. Normally with press screenings, with straight up press screenings, it is almost all the time, almost every time, first come, first serve. Press screenings, because they know how many people are coming to the press. They know all that kind of stuff. So they know there's room, everything like that. So press screening, you just go in and grab a seat. Premieres is always pre-assigned seating. So what happens is, let me see if I can find an example here. Let me see if I've got a badge. Give me a second here. Okay. I got one here. Okay, so here we have a, this was my thing for the Black Panther premiere. Okay, this is my badge for the Black Panther premiere. On the back, it actually said where my seating was. So there's my seating right there. So yes, at premieres, these things are always pre-assigned seat. They know exactly where they're putting you, which is why I am convinced 100% that Marvel and Disney purposefully sit me around the cast of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. almost every time, because everybody knows I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is a bag of shit show. Other than Coulson, Clark Gregg is great. I watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just so I can watch Clark Gregg, and Ming-Na too. But anyway, because I think they are great. But I do not like the show. Straight up, look, I can't like it, whatever. I don't like the show. I think it's terrible. And I think it is for that reason that they know I hate that show. I think it is out of spite. They've never admitted it to me, but I think it is almost out of spite that they constantly sit me right in the middle of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. cast. I don't know why, but I guess they think it's funny. Anyway, so yes, at press stuff, at press stuff, it's first come, first serve, but at premieres, it's always pre-assigned. Okay, Marie Seifring writes, "How is Anne doing? Hope birthday is fun." She's feeling much better today. Because 2 days ago, it was Thursday that she started coming down with it, right? Thursday, she started coming down with it. So we started loading the vitamins, the wellness formulas, lots of liquids, all that kind of stuff. And then this morning she woke up and she was actually feeling pretty good. She's still sneezing and coughing a little, but she feels great. She feels really good. So all plans are a go for tonight for the birthday festivities. Okay, let's move on here. Where are we at next? James Boner writes, saw Alita Battle Angel, fun movie, but could have done without the love interest. His character did nothing for, I agree. I think Alita was a very good movie. And the main reason I liked it was because of the lead character. I thought Alita, if you can get an audience connected with your main protagonist, you've gone a long way to making sure that person likes this movie. And the biggest thing that Alita did well to me was made a very a character that was very easy to get attached to in Alita. But they totally could have done without that love interest. That whole love interest was painful. They should have just written it out. I don't care if it was in some other version of the story. They should have written it out. It shouldn't have been there. It just detracted from the movie, and it's too bad. Now, overall, the movie's still quite good, and I enjoyed Alita. I hope they make a sequel. But yeah, they totally should have taken out that love interest for sure. Okay, let's move on here. Where are we at? Matt Phillips Reviews writes, every MCU character introduced is eventually tied to the Avengers. Will this continue? Was this decided due to Disney not owning other major groups? No, I just think that Kevin Feige's vision, because you very easily could look, the Guardians of the Galaxy are another group, right? You've got the Guardians of the Galaxy. That's another group. But I think it doesn't have anything to do, because you don't have to go by what's in the comic books. They can make up other groups that they want. You know, they could put together a group of 4 or 5 of the characters and call them the Olympians. They could do that if they want. They can make up any name they want. They could have done that if they wanted to. But the thing with that Kevin Feige's vision was, we've been talking a lot about this from the beginning, is that his vision was to create a universe that was all shared and brought them all together to this big crescendo. That was always that. Now remember, Doctor Strange is not a member of the Avengers. He's in the Avengers movie, but he's not a member of the Avengers. At this point, he's not. Black Panther is not an Avenger. There are a lot of these characters who are not Avengers, but they're in the movies with them. They're on Earth, so they're fighting for Earth, and that's what they're doing. But no, it has nothing to do with, Disney didn't have rights to major groups. No. They could have made up any major group they wanted. They still could have called something the West Coast Avengers if they wanted to. They could have done all that, but the whole idea that Feige had was to create this cinematic universe and then bring it to a crescendo. And that's what I keep knocking this around my windscreen. Sorry, windscreen. And then bring it to a crescendo in the Avengers films. That's what they're doing. Okay. Vaishno Zin writes, Saw Get Out, and as a non-US, I'm not impressed at all. I couldn't understand and appreciate the underlying tone of the movie. What am I missing? Don't you think certain foreign movies don't get us? Look, I don't think it's what you're missing. Look, not every movie works for everybody. If you saw Us, it doesn't matter if you're an American, a Canadian, or any nationality. Not every movie works for everybody. Don't fool yourself into thinking that every American liked Get Out. They don't. There are critics who didn't like it. There's audience people who didn't like it. Not every movie works for everybody. That's the subjectivity of film. And if you didn't appreciate the film and it didn't work for you, that's not because you didn't get it. It's because you watched it, didn't work for you. So nothing else needed beyond that, man. You're totally fine. It's not something you're missing. It's just that it didn't work for you. No problem. Garrett Couch writes, Fathom event, Batman screening, yes. Schumacher, no. I really appreciate Fathom events. You know, when I go to CinemaCon, I try not to do any of the interviews. I always get, my inbox right now is filled with all these, come and interview this person, come and interview this person, and with all, everything in my inbox. But I'm honestly not interested at all in that stuff. But I got to admit, I got an invite to go and talk to some people from Fathom Events. I may take them up on that because they do some really cool things. And little screenings like that is one of them. All right, Chase Schleich. I'm sure I'm butchering your name, Chase. Forgive me for that. Chase writes, Nolan's Batman killed Dent. No backlash from fans. Yeah. I mean, was he setting out to kill Dent? Again, Chase, it goes back to somebody brought that exact same thing up. Other versions of Batman killed and nobody got upset, but the minute Ben Affleck's Batman does, woo, that's true. That's true. I still think there's good discussion to be had about whether or not Batman should kill. I think it's totally acceptable that he does. Others don't. Great discussion to have. But there is a little bit of underlying hypocrisy there. You're right, because in the comics he's killed. In the different movie iterations he's killed. It's happened, and you're right. Edgar Navarro writes, your podcast is the first one I've ever heard, and man, it's so good. Oh, thank you, Edgar. Again, thank you for constantly bringing up, you guys, me having the ability to plug mine and Robert's and Cody Miller's podcast, Best Movie, Worst Movie. It's the new podcast that we started. We are now 3 episodes in. You can go and find it on your favorite podcast app, whether it's on iTunes or any other of the podcast services you enjoy. It's called Best Movie, Worst Movie. We love doing this show, and I'm glad so many of you guys have subscribed and are listening to it, and we really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much. And hey, man, you're going to start getting addicted. Podcasts are things you can get addicted to really quick, but thank you, Edgar, for checking ours out, man. I really appreciate that. Okay. Orange Hand writes, least likable non-villain MCU character. Ooh. Least likable. Huh. Man, I do like a lot of them. Least likable non-villain. Off the top of my head, I mean, you could say Thunderbolt Ross, but technically he's not a villain, but he's not exactly here. But if you're talking like the main characters, I might have to say Scarlet Witch. Don't get me wrong. She's a lot of fun to watch on screen, but the character herself, they haven't done a lot with her. They haven't done a lot with her, other than the fact that she likes having sex with a glorified toaster, like her with Vision, right? Other than that, they haven't really done a lot with the character. I don't dislike Scarlet Witch, and she's played by a brilliant actress with Olsen. Brilliant actress. But they just haven't done enough with her to get me really on board with her. I guess the same could be said of Mantis. They haven't done a lot with Mantis. She says some very cute lines, but they haven't really got me attached. So if I have to think of the main characters that I really like the least, it might actually be Scarlet Witch might be up there. They haven't done much with her. Okay. Edgar Navarro writes, over under 20%, the Avengers lose again in Endgame. I'll take the under on that. I mean, you set the number pretty low, but I'll still take the under. This is going to be our Return of the Jedi. There's going to be loss, there's going to be sacrifice, but at the end, it's going to be victory. So, yeah, I do not believe the Avengers lose again in Endgame. I don't think they're going to go that way. Wouldn't it be something if they did, though? Wouldn't it be something if they did? All right, let's see, where are we at? Andrew Hogue writes, rather see Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2 or The Other Guys 2? Oh, that's easy, Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2. I didn't even think The Other Guys was all that good. The best part of The Other Guys was when The Rock and Samuel Jackson was in it, and they killed them off pretty quick. And the rest of the movie was all right. Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike The Other Guys, but Man from U.N.C.L.E. was great. Other Guys was okay, so easily I'd take Man from U.N.C.L.E. 2. Easy. Daryl Gann writes, your thoughts on Fringe? Best sci-fi in a while. Also, you ever a fan of Siskel and Ebert? Movie review greatness. Long live physical medium. Yeah, the physical media is dying, unfortunately. But, and yeah, of course I was into Siskel and Ebert as a kid. I mean, actually, then even afterwards, Roger Ebert was my favorite film critic of all time. I only agreed with him about half the time, but I just loved the way he expressed his thoughts and opinions, because even when I disagreed with him, it helped me understand the way he used to express his opinions. Help me understand my ideas and my opinions better. And that's what a good critic will do. It's not about just listening to critics you agree with, because like I said, I disagreed with him half the time. And I really did like Fringe. I thought it fell apart near the end. I did. I felt like it started to fall apart a little bit, but the first couple seasons, very, very good. I used to like Fringe very much. And I was excited to see that the lead girl from Fringe was in that new Netflix show, Mindhunter. She's one of the lead characters in Mindhunter. Love her in that too. Jake Therian writes, John, what about ketchup on quiche? No ketchup on anything egg related, Jake. No, thank you, sir. Get thee behind me, Satan. Marie Seifring writes, thoughts on Cillian Murphy possibly joining the cast of the Quiet Place sequel? Keep up the great work. Thanks for all you do. Well, I have not heard that, but listen, you know my saying here, Marie. It is never a mistake to add talent. And Cillian Murphy or Killian Murphy, however people say it, I don't know. I get corrected all the time. Let's go with Killian Murphy for now. He's a solid actor. I like him very much. Adding him would be great because he's a good, solid actor. And you know my philosophy. Never a mistake to add talent. That dude is talent. It would be great. I mean, it'd be great. There are a lot of actors they could name that would be great additions, but I haven't heard that. But if that is what they're talking about, then that's great news to me because he's a hyper talented actor. I love the guy. All right. Guy Volt writes, which one makes more money, Toy Story 4 or Frozen 2? It's a good question, man. It's a good question. Oddly enough, neither of those films will be the number one animated box office film of the year. The number one animated box office movie of the year is going to be Lion King. Because make no mistake, Lion King is not a live action film. It is all animated. It is in every way, shape, and form an animated movie. It doesn't look animated, but it is animated. So the number one box office animated film of the year will be Lion King. But Toy Story 4, Frozen 2. I mean, right now, Frozen 2, I believe, is the highest box office animated film of all time. And the first trailer to Frozen 2 looked great. First trailer for Toy Story 4 didn't look awesome. I'll be honest. Now, the movie I'm sure will be great, but the trailer did not look great. The trailer for Frozen 2 was great. You know what? I'm going to go back and forth on this. Today, I'm going to say Frozen 2, but if you ask me the same question tomorrow, I might say Toy Story 4. So I'm going to go back and forth, but just for now, I'll say I kind of think maybe Frozen 2. Notice, I'm not saying which one would be the better movie, but I think Toy Story 2 might be the bigger box office, so I'm not sure yet. Santez Henderson writes, I don't care if he's a bastard. Ned Stark's blood runs through his veins. He's my king today until his last day. I have goosebumps and tears from that. There are so many great lines. Like, I love big, cool scenes, but what really moves me in a movie is great lines, great dialogue. You know, a little bit earlier in the show, we were talking about that line from Man of Steel. Oh, can't we just keep pretending I'm your son? You are my son. Oh, I get chills when I think about that. It's great dialogue. Yeah, seeing a big ice dragon flying around. Okay, that's cool. I dig it. I do. I like that. But I can come and go on those. Anybody can animate a dragon destroying a wall. Great. Not anybody can write great dialogue. And there are scenes like this that run throughout Game of Thrones. And that's what makes this, to me, that's what makes the show really special. Really great writing. And you're right, I do love that one. Let's see. Calvin Blackdeer writes, since today is I keep forgetting that. Today is Batman's 80th birthday. I'm doing a Batman movie marathon. Nice. Currently watching Batman 1989. My three favorite Batman movies are The Dark Knight Rises, and Batman 89. God, I would have to go. The Dark Knight would be my number one. Batman Begins would be my number two. And probably Batman versus Superman would be my number three. But I like Batman versus Superman more than most people do. I don't love the film, but I do. I appreciate it quite a bit. It's my favorite incarnation of Batman. But Batman 89, I still remember seeing that with my buddy Brendan, who passed away a couple of years ago. I love watching that movie. It's great. So keep forgetting about that, man. Yeah, it is that. And we're in this pivotal time right now, Calvin. We're in this pivotal time about, we're now moving on the post Zack Snyder era in DC. We've got Aquaman, we've got Shazam, and pretty soon we're going to get a new Batman under the direction of Matt Reeves. Still a shame that it's not Ben Affleck directing, but whatever. Matt Reeves is a great director. I'm glad he's on board. If he ever gets around to doing this movie. But pretty soon we're going to be getting a new Batman. And it's going to be really interesting to see where this Batman falls. What's his character going to be like? What kind of Batman are we going to get? Because it's neat, as you're mentioning things like Dark Knight, totally different Batman from the Batman 1989, which is really a different Batman from what we got in Justice League, which itself was a different Batman than what we got in Batman versus Superman. It's going to be really curious to see where they go with it. Somebody was asking a little bit earlier, too, about the notion that, what are they going to do with all the success of Aquaman and Shazam and the lighter tone? Are they going to go lighter tone with Batman? Are they going to keep him kind of in the darker roots like they did in Batman versus Superman? I kind of think it's going to be a hybrid of the two. It's going to be a both and, not an either or. But it's a fascinating question right now of where we're at, Calvin. It's going to be neat to see where they go. And it's going to be neat to see where movies like The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises or Batman 1989, how those and which influences this new Batman will take from those movies, or will they take more influences from other places? It's a fascinating time. Cannot wait. It's now been 3 years since they announced Matt Reeves as Batman, and we still don't know when they're going to start shooting this thing. They're saying they're hoping to start shooting by the end of the year, but it's getting kind of silly at this point. But anyway, thanks for that. And by the way, thank you for that generous super chat, man. Thank you for supporting the channel that way. I really appreciate it. And happy birthday, Batman. All right. Donnie Yasu writes, if Zack Snyder is tired of all the Batman doesn't kill talk, I wonder how Paul Rudd is handling the talk of going up a purple alien's butt. Well, those are two very different situations. One, Zack Snyder he's been universally attacked by people, vilified by people, all that kind of stuff for years over that one issue. With Paul Rudd, this is a new thing, and it's not really his issue at all. So I think these are two different things. But yeah, it is funny seeing these, going up Thanos' asshole kind of memes that are going around. Some of them are very, very funny, Donnie. All right. Garrett Couch writes, where'd Garrett go? There he is. Batman versus Superman tap out. Superman saves Lois in the middle of Africa instantly. Lex's plan, you've only got 30 minutes to save Mom in the next town over. Yeah, but the thing was, it wasn't that simple. There was an extenuating circumstance around that. He knew where Lois was. He did not know where his mother was. But there were some other circumstances there too. I'd have to go back, sit down, and watch it again to get the details of it. But I remember watching and thinking, oh, they did set up a scenario that really puts Batman, or Superman, I should say, in a predicament. It puts him in a predicament. What does he do here? Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I understood it in the movie. Again, I'd have to go back and watch it again to get all the details. But I remember thinking there wasn't an issue there. Darth Wayne 97 writes, Comic-Con 2019 prediction. Matt Reeves comes out, announces new Batman, and brings the actor on stage. Would you take that bet? It's not a bad idea. I mean, look, I've said for a long time, I think their Batman is already cast. As a matter of fact, I think their Batman has been cast probably for a couple of months already. And they're just not telling people. But John, I saw in one place they said they're just starting the cast. It doesn't matter. They've got their Batman. It's done. They've signed their Batman. They know who their Batman is. I completely 100% believe that. Because remember, by the time we found out Ben Affleck was Batman, he had already been signed for 6 months. He had already been signed 6 months before they ever announced that he was Batman. I believe they've already got their Batman picked. And if Marvel doesn't have a big presence at Comic-Con, which I don't think they will because they got D23 coming, I think Warner Brothers will really take front and center stage there. And remember, it was at Comic-Con that Zack Snyder came out on stage. They announced Batman versus Superman, all that kind of stuff. Warner Brothers seems to really like to take advantage of Comic-Con and use it for that publicity. So I think there's a very good chance that happens. I think there's a very good chance that happens. Because they'd still be pretty far away from when they start shooting, if they don't start shooting to the end of the year. So it's not like they have to rush out an announcement about who's playing Batman anytime in the next month or two, right? So I think there's a very good shot at that. I wouldn't put money on it, but I think there's a very, very legit shot that could actually happen. Okay, Stubble McShave writes, choose one, a Spielberg Superman movie, a Scorsese Batman movie, or a Tarantino Joker movie. Ooh. I'm much more curious to see a Spielberg Star Wars movie than I am a Spielberg Superman movie, so I'll take a pass on that. Scorsese with Batman. Or, a taxi driver in the Batman universe. Man. A Tarantino Joker sounds real appealing too. I'll put that in my number 2 spot. I'll take Scorsese doing Batman. That, when you look at Scorsese's history, That would be fascinating. I'll take that one. I'll take that one. All right, Stubble follows up with keep one, lose one. Gladiator, Braveheart. Oh God. Neither. Oh God. Two Best Picture winners. Oh man. That's a Sophie's choice. I guess I'll say keep Braveheart. Yeah, maybe I will. I think there's an argument to be made that Braveheart is a top 20 greatest film of all time. I think there's a strong argument that Braveheart may be a top 20 film of all time. I love Gladiator. And, you know, my favorite actor in the world right now is Russell Crowe. He was magnificent in that as Maximus. But I don't know that I don't know if it's top 20 of all time. And Braveheart probably is. Pains me to say it, but I'll say keep Braveheart, lose Gladiator. Oh, that pains me to say that. Django19 writes, just got a Galaxy 10 Plus. Interesting, and I love it. I know you're an Android guy. I am. What phone do you use, and what feature is a must-have? For me, it's the wireless charging. Wireless charging has been great. I've enjoyed right now, my daily driver, I've had it for a couple of years now. I have the Note 8. I love the Note 8. I never did upgrade to the Note 9 because I'm a type of guy, like with a lot of my technology, I always want the newest thing right away, except for my phones. My phones, I've always been, hey, as long as I have no complaints about how my phone is operating, if my phone is still doing everything I want it to do, I don't feel the need to run out and get another phone, right? It's when I start to realize, hey man, all the new features my phone doesn't have, it's starting to act a little sluggish, the battery life isn't as good as it used to be, blah, blah, then I make the move and I get a new phone. But dude, I gotta tell you what, I am still in love with my Note 8. Still in love. The wireless charging is a nice feature. I use wireless chargers all the time. So that's a nice feature. I do like that. But I'll tell you what is a new feature in the Samsung phones that really makes me think about getting one. And that is this. On the Note, the stylus, the pen, the Samsung pen that's in it, which by the way, people, you don't know what you're missing. You can do so much with that pen on these phones. It's crazy. But anyway, I believe they started it with the Note 9 with selfies. Like say I'm with my wife, I want to hold up my camera and take a picture of me and Ann together, right? With selfies, it's so a little odd because you got to get your thumb around there and hit where's the button and you're taking up. With the Note 9, you could take the pen out and there's a button on the pen and you can just use the button on the pen to snap the picture. It's a simple thing, but a brilliant thing. My next phone, which will probably be the Note 10 whenever that comes out. That's probably what I'll get next is the Note 10. But that to me is a feature I really want. I want that ability to trigger the camera with the button on the pen. I want that ability. That sounds like a great idea. I cannot wait to get my hands on that. But yeah, right now my daily driver is the Note 8. I used to be an iPhone guy, and I love Macs. I've got a Mac right here. I love my Apple computers. But I just find the Android phones to be superior to the iPhone in almost every way. There's just nothing I can think of that I prefer on an iPhone. I just thought Android was so superior, so I made the switch and I've never looked back and love them right now. And I'm hearing great things about the Galaxy 10, but I'm going to wait till that Note 10 comes out, whenever it does. All right. Jared Murray writes, more subjective movies or music. There's no such thing. Something either is subjective or it's not. It's like, who's more pregnant? There is no more pregnant. Either somebody's pregnant or they're not pregnant. There's not degrees of pregnant. They're either pregnant or they're not. Some might be further along and they've been pregnant longer, but there's either pregnant or not. Movies and music are art. As art, it's subjective. So they are both subjective. They are both 100% objective. So it's very much a tie on that level. Okay. KSNASCAR Fantasy writes, Which Star Trek movie would you say is the better movie? Undiscovered Country or First Contact? Keep up your always spectacular and fun show. To me, that's easy. That's easy to me. And that's Undiscovered Country. I think maybe other than Wrath of Khan, it's the best Star Trek movie they've ever made. I love that movie. And I'm in the minority. I don't think First Contact's all that good. I don't think it's bad. Don't misquote me. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I just don't think First Contact is all that great. I think it's okay. I think it's a passable Star Trek movie, but I've never really found it to be all that great. And I know there are a lot of Star Trek fans that love that movie. And that's great. I respect that. But for me, that's an easy question. Undiscovered Country all the way. And thank you so much for the kind words, man. I really appreciate that, man. Okay. Stubble McShave writes, tried ketchup on eggs. Horrible. I blame you, John. Don't blame me. I've been telling you it's terrible. It's like me telling you, no, it's awful? Being kicked in the nuts. And you going, I've never tried being kicked in the nuts. Hey, buddy, come over here. Kick me in the nuts. And you get kicked in the nuts and it's painful and you're blaming me for it? I told you from the beginning it's terrible. Don't blame me. All right. Mike Lynch writes, hey, John, I love the show. Thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate that. I was wondering if you have ever seen the Santa Clarita Diet. It's funny, somebody just asked me that earlier. The Santa Clarita Diet on Netflix. Season 3 just dropped and I binged it all. It's such a great show. Thanks and keep up the great work. I have never watched anything of that show. But the funny thing is, I know they pumped that show a lot. Like you could drive, I remember there was a period of time where you drive around LA, there was like Santa Clarita Diet billboards all over the place, all that kind of stuff. They were really pushing that show and I've never heard anything but good things about it. So I got a few shows people are telling me I got to get on. Santa Clarita Diet might need to be one of those because you're the second person just on today's show alone that has told me about it. So that might be something I got to get on. I might have to get on that one here pretty quick, Mike, because I'm hearing good things. You're saying good things about it. And their Netflix show, so I can probably binge. I'm a bit of a binger, so maybe I can get through that in a long weekend sometime. I'll check it out, Mike. Thanks for the suggestion. All right. Quentin Carter writes, what do you think Christoph Waltz was better in, Inglourious Basterds or Django? I love him in both, but I like him just a little bit more in Django. A strong argument to be made for both of those, Quentin. Strong argument to be made for both. Like, I didn't know if Christoph Waltz could be better in anything than what he was in Django Unchained. Sorry, rephrase that. In Inglourious Basterds. He was, that whole opening scene about going to the family's house and sitting down, having a glass of milk, that, oh my God. And then he came in Django, and he was spectacular in Django. Won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, by the way, in both of those movies. He won Best Supporting Actor in both films. I'm going to lean towards Inglourious Basterds again. I just think his performance in that, first of all, there's no detraction from either of them, but what he brought to that movie, he was the heartbeat of that movie, man. And it's odd to say that about the villain, but the villain was the heartbeat of that movie. I don't know if that movie is as good as it is if it wasn't for him. He made such a wild villain that you loved but disgusted by. Like, he was committing atrocities and yet you loved every second that he was on screen. It was crazy. So I don't believe this is a question that has any wrong answer, to be honest with you, but I'm going to lean towards Inglourious Basterds, but they're both magnificent. Both performances were incredible. Thanks a lot for the question, Quentin. Okay. NPE94 writes, do you like Danny Elfman's music? I gotta say, out of all the big name composers, he's probably lower on the list for me amongst the big name composers, but yeah, there's a number of films that he's done that are just fabulous. So I will admit, I don't run out to see what's the next Danny Elfman soundtrack. I admit I don't do that, but he's done some brilliant stuff. He's done some brilliant stuff. And he is one of the big names for a reason. Like, I don't put him up there, say, with Zimmer or with a John Williams, but he's great. And so in general, yes. Yeah, in general, I'll say yes. Jacob Jansen writes, the other day you mentioned theaters taking advantage of their janitors. Now, I know your show isn't a political show, but I do believe the only way to get them to change is by mandating them by law. Well, here's the thing, Jacob. And again, treating people fairly is not a political issue. Treating people fairly is a human issue. And the only people who have a problem with treating people fairly are people with a massive political agenda. So I do not consider that a political issue. The issue, though, Jacob, is there are laws in place. It's just that these companies and whatever find loopholes around meeting the requirements of the law. The laws are in place. They just got to be enforced properly and close little loopholes. Like, I get it. These janitors don't work for the theater, so it's not the theaters isn't underpaying them. They're paying a company for janitorial services. But if you are hiring a company to do something for you and you are fully aware that that company does not provide legally required wages to somebody that they can live on, then you as a company, as the theaters in this case, you have, I would say, a moral responsibility to say, hey, we're not going to work with your company if you are treating your workers like slave labor. Like when the story about the woman who works like 12 hours a day for $5 an hour and they wouldn't let her take the day off of her son's funeral. I mean, come on. Come on. This isn't politics. This is common frickin' humanity. And again, the problem, Jacob, is that there all are laws in place. You know, there are governments that have been under power of one party and the other that have put laws in place to make sure people are not treated like cattle. All right? You can have an argument whether some have done it better than others, that's fine, but there have been laws put in place by both political major parties to make sure that the citizens of the United States and people who live here are not treated like cattle. And it's just that now we got to make sure those loopholes get closed. So yeah, I was very disturbed to read that article. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, look up, it was an exclusive article written in Variety about the major movie theaters chains really taking advantage of it'll break your heart. You'll find it very disturbing, but I do recommend everybody go and find that article and read it because it's something that as a part of our film fan community, it's got to be addressed. It's got to be addressed. Anyway, Rich's Movie Trailers writes, love you and your work. Keep it up. Well, thank you so much, Rich's. I really appreciate that, man. It's always nice when people just want to send in something encouraging. Thank you, man. I love that. Hands of Stone writes, Avengers, Logan, and Dark Knight are your top 3 comic book movies. Where would Man of Steel rank on your list? Well, Man of Steel is in my top 10. I don't have a definitive top 10. I mean, I've tried writing out definitive top 10s, but then I realize it changes around. All I know for sure is that Man of Steel's in my top 10. I got a list of films that are my top 10. That's definitely in there. Whether it's number 6 or number 9 or number 4, I don't know, but it's just definitively in my top 10. Let's see. Good old Uncle Sidious writes, does Shazam eventually learn to pee in his suit? See, that's not a spoiler. That was in the trailer. It's like, can you fly? Fly, man, I don't even know how to pee in this thing. It's a great line. That is a line that kind of epitomizes the movie. It really is. Does he eventually learn how to pee in the suit? I can't tell you that because that would be a spoiler, Sidious. Okay. Django 19 writes, didn't think Us was perfect, but I still overall enjoy it. But I love the poster with Lupita holding the mask. My theater gave me one, so I had to frame it. What posters have you had up on your wall? By the way, Lupita Nyong'o in Us. It's way too early to say she must get a Best Actress nomination because I don't know if there's going to be 5 other performances this year that are better, but I'll say this. If there are 5 other lead actress performances this year that are better than Lupita in Us, then it will be the greatest year for lead actress characters in the history of cinema. All right, so maybe there will be 5 or 6 others that are better than her, and maybe she won't deserve to get a Best Actress nomination when the Oscars come around. Maybe. But if that's the case, it's going to be one of the greatest years for actresses in history, because Lupita Nyong'o in almost any other year would get a Best Actress nomination for her performance in Us. It's that good. I may not like the ending of the film, but overall it's a good film, but she is stupid good in it. Anyway, the only one I've really done where I've taken it and I've framed it was Batman versus Superman. I went to this advanced screening of Batman vs. Superman. They gave us all this poster, and I framed that poster, and I put it up on my office wall. And what sucks is I don't have it anymore, because at my last gig that I was at, I think I lost a bunch of my stuff, and I don't know where it is. And one of the things that I lost when I moved out was that poster, which sucks because I had it framed and everything, but that's the one that I framed. But that, you're right, man. That poster for Us is a beautiful poster, like where she's got the mask of herself. Chilling poster, really good design. John Demoto writes, I will find him. You think your son is safe? I will find him. Yeah, so that's General Zod, played beautifully by Michael Shannon. So good as Zod. I loved him as Zod. I thought he was great. A very different Zod than what we got in, say, Superman 2, but captured the spirit of Zod. I loved him. I love that line. I will find him. So good. So good. And I can talk Man of Steel all day. You've already seen me talk Man of Steel almost all day. All right. Darklock63 writes, watched the Ten Commandments when I was a child in the theater. There was an intermission when Moses was exiled. We had it before. We should have it now. I completely agree. I completely agree. And again, this whole false argument of if you take an intermission, it pulls you completely out of the movie. Nonsense. You know what gets you wrapped up into it? Live theater. Live theater gets you wrapped up into it. And guess what? Every live theater show takes an intermission. Does that ruin every live? Did that ruin Hamilton? Nope. No, it's just part of it, and everybody's just used to it. That's all it's going to take for us to do in the movies today. Listen, it's good for the audience because it gives you a break to use the bathroom. It also gives you a break to check your phone if you want, because that's a big thing with people today. And hey, if that's going to help cut down the amount of times people pull out their phones and check their phones during a movie, which happens all the time, then great. Because if people know, hey, another 15, 20 minutes, I can step out in the foyer, pull my phone out and check everything. You're good. Also, it'll cut down the amount of times people get up and walk in front of you to go to the bathroom. Also, it's good for the movie theaters because people will go back to the concession stand. Movie theaters have a hard time staying above water. Like, we all think they're just raking in cash. They're not. They're barely making profit, because they cost a lot of money to run these things, and they make most of their money just at the concession stand. So you take a break, that'll encourage people to go to the concession stand. It's good for the theaters. It's good for the moviegoers, and we'll just get used to it, and it's perfect. It's perfect. I agree, Darth. I think they should institute, not for all movies, but for those rare movies that are like 2 hours and 40 or longer. 2.5 hours, we can hang out, we can hold out, but like 2 hour 35, 2 hours 40, 2 hours 45, whatever, plan a 7-minute intermission. 7-minute intermission. And then it'll become just like it does in live theater. There's always an intermission with every show, and we all just completely used to it, and it's great. Anyway, that's just my thought. Again, there are other points of view as well. Rob doesn't agree. Rob doesn't want, just to be clear, there are a lot of people who don't think it's a good idea, and Rob is one of them. Rob's a smart guy. But yeah, I'm firmly on the side of, yep, movies over 240 or 245, take an intermission, man. All right, Magic K writes, you're probably going to like Brightburn since you like Man of Steel. I hope so. But listen, there are lots of movies, and just because one movie was great and there's another movie that's kind of like it, that movie turns out to be garbage. That's happened a lot. But I do know that I do love the look of Brightburn. Brightburn looks intense and crazy, and it's such a different take on things. Can't wait to see that. All right, Hands of Stone writes, what if theaters assign some screens with an intermission and some without? Viewers can then choose. No, you can't do that because that takes up more screens, right? When there's already a limited number of screens. So I just don't think, you don't just do it with any movie. I think you only do it with exceptionally long movies. with exceptionally long movies, I believe it increases the viewing experience. I really do. And I think other countries around the world that have it have been writing and saying, yeah, we love it. It's great. Intermissions are wonderful. Everybody thinks it's great. So, but I don't think you do it with every movie. But this notion of have it on multiple screens. Well, there's just not enough screens to go around. And an intermission doesn't make it a different movie. So no, I don't think you do that. I don't think you do that. There's just too many practical problems with it that you can't address. Kevin King writes, I've seen a peanut stand. I heard a rubber band, but I be done seeing just about everything when I see an elephant fly. I can't wait to see this film. If you're talking about Dumbo, which we must be talking about Dumbo if we're talking about a flying elephant, I was really excited to see it too. You know what? I was getting excited. I was always a little bit torn on it because I'm not a Tim Burton fan, but I did think the trailers were pretty damn good. And that kind of got me excited for it. And I found as we were getting closer to the release of the film, I was getting more and more excited about it. I was kind of neutral on it for a while, but I found particularly in the last week or week and a half before the movie, I was starting to get more excited about it. And then we got our tickets for opening night. Couldn't go because my wife was sick. And then we started hearing all the mixed reviews. So I got to admit my enthusiasm for seeing it's taken a bit of a hit. I'll still get around to seeing it at some point. It's just not going to be this week because I'm going to be in Vegas. Stubble McShave writes, should bad seats, example front row, have a lower price? See, here's the problem with that, Stubble. I'm not going to go into it in great detail. The problem is if you start assigning different prices for different seats in the theater, movie theaters aren't going to lower the price for the bad seats. They're just going to increase the prices for the better seats. And at the end of the day, the seats are just going to be more expensive. And that's always been my big fear of that. I think they should just eliminate like unacceptable seats. You know, great thing, there's a theater chain in Los Angeles called ArcLight. The very front row is a great seat because they make sure it's far enough back from the screen that even if you're in that very front row, it's still a good seat. And I just think theaters need to be more aware that let's not put in garbage seats. Let's put in good seats. And if a seat's a garbage seat, take it out. You know, I just think if they did a whole seat payment plan scheme, theaters will just use it as an excuse to up the overall price of tickets rather than lower the price of bad ones. You know what I'm saying? Matthew, let me see if I can get this. Matthew Dekutros, I hope I'm saying that right. I'm probably not because I suck at names, writes, in a world where movies like The Mouse That Roared, Doctor Strangelove, Life of Brian exist, you choose 40-year-old version as your favorite comedy? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, and you know, some people would say to me, hey, in a world where this movie or that movie, let's see. What's the one I'm thinking of right now? What's the Woody Allen one with the one Best Picture the year that's Star Trek? Annie Hall. A lot of people consider Annie Hall, which won Best Picture the year that Star Wars came out, right? To be the greatest comedy and stuff like that. But I unabashedly, unassumedly, I reject this notion that, oh, only this kind of movie should be considered the best. Nah. 40-Year Virgin is the best comedy I've ever seen. There has just never been a movie that made me do two things. One, laugh as hard and as often, and also had real heart. Movie had real heart to it. That I really appreciated and I really liked. And it was this beautiful mixture of it. And then it was from that movie that spun off. I mean, it was really the first movie that gave Seth Rogen a real role. And it kind of exploded Seth Rogen into the big career that he's had. It really let Paul Rudd be front and center. Obviously, it was a big breakout thing for Steve Carell. It was just so great. So absolutely, I'll debate that every day of the week. Now, Life of Brian, great. Quest for the Holy Grail, great. Annie Hall, great. A number, not all of them, but a number of the Pink Panther films, great. Absolutely. I'm not going to deny that. But none have ever given me the experience that 40-Year-Old Virgin did. the amount of laughs, how hard my laughs were, also mixing in heart to it. It's beautiful. But, you know, it goes back again to, it is the epitome that all film is subjective. You know, just because I feel that way about the 40-Year-Old Virgin, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you to feel the same way I do. You know, you watch a movie, it's going to hit you a certain way, and it hits you a certain way. There's no talking you into it or talking you out of it. And I believe it's kind of a fool's errand to try to talk somebody into liking something more that they like, or trying to talk something into liking something less than what they like. It's a fool's errand. And I'm not disputing the greatness of any of those comedies, but 40-Year-Old Virgin, to me, best experience I've ever had in a theater watching a comedy. Best one I've ever had. Almost tied, just barely behind it by a micro fraction, would be Noises Off, with Michael Caine, Carol Burnett, John Ritter, Christopher Reeve, on and on and on. Oh, nobody's seen Noises Off. Watch Noises Off. Freaking hilarious comedy. Anyway, Benjamin Waters writes, I live in Australia and we have had assigned seating and online booking since I was young. I know it creates worries for Endgame, but it's totally worth it in the grand scheme of things. So I don't know how having assigned seating creates worries for Endgame. If anything, it's peace of mind. Once you buy your ticket, you know exactly where your seat is. You don't have to worry about getting to the theater 3 hours early so you can get that seat or get a good seat. You know you can show up. The movie starts at 7. You can walk in at 5 minutes to 7 and you know your seat is sitting there waiting for you. So if anything, Benjamin, pre-assigned seating is especially great for movies like this. Especially great for movies like this. I still remember the last time I went to an opening night of a movie. It was one of the X-Men movies. I was visiting Canada, and I think it was one of the Wolverine movies. And it was at this theater that was still in the Stone Ages and didn't have pre-assigned seating. So we still had to get there. Me and my buddy got there a couple of hours early. Like the movie started at 7, we got there at like 5. And we were still like number 30 or 40 in line. And the line was outside. And it was cold. Anyway, we were there 2 hours early because it was still the Stone Ages and we didn't have a seat locked up and guaranteed for us. So if we wanted to get a good seat, we had to go 2 hours early and stand there like idiots outside in the cold because we were still living in the dark ages, apparently. And I remember thinking to myself, never again. Never again. If I can take a trip on a Greyhound bus and know where my seat is, I should be able to come to a movie and know where my seat is. You know what I mean? Never again, I swore, and I never have. Never have. Let's see. Tyler Weddle writes, John, been watching since AMC Movie Talk episode 1. Oh, thanks so much, man. And I just want to say thank you. I've learned so much from you and you've changed my life for the better. Some of your life advice I will remember forever. And make sure, Tyler, that one of those pieces of advice is never putting ketchup on your eggs. That's the biggest takeaway. No, seriously, man, thank you. It is crazy to think I've been doing this so long, and I've been doing this long enough that I have people like, and it's not just you, Tyler, but I have people writing to me now saying, John, I started watching you in grade 9 and I just graduated college. A few, it's like, really? It's like crazy. But honestly, it's, back in the day, it's weird for me to think about it, but 2018 marked my 15th anniversary in being involved in online film punditry. I launched my website, The Movie Blog, in 2003. In June of 2003, with a post about the horse movie Seabiscuit. That was the first blog post that I wrote for themovieblog.com. That was my website at the time. And now I only did it as a hobby for a number of years, and then I decided to do it full time, and then AMC asked me to come and start up some big online thing for them, so I accepted and blah, blah, blah. And the rest is history. But it all started sitting in my buddy's basement. My friend Trevor and his wife, they let me, I was in their basement and I had my laptop out and I was like, hey man, a lot of the blogging I'm doing is about movies. So I'm just going to make a blog about movies. And I'm going to call it, I don't know, The Movie Blog. and the domain was available. I bought it, set up my website, and the rest is history. But it is crazy, man, that I've been doing it for so long that people like remember watching since the first AMC Movie Talk, and some people long before that. So I really appreciate Tyler. I appreciate the kind words, and I appreciate you coming along for the ride all this way. And it's just great being a film fan, isn't it? So thanks for being a part of that, man. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you saying that. All right. We've already gone past 3 o'clock. Okay, I can take just a couple more. He's going to take a couple more quick because I know Ann's going to start getting frustrated with me. Iggy is horrible writes, you know the Japanese Spider-Man is where we get the spider buggy, and also it's the predecessor to Super Sentai, and Power Rangers type shows. I had some people saying that, but I did know. I don't know how I knew Iggy, but I did know that's where the spider buggy came from. How did I know that? Somebody must have told me that at some point. I got to assume because I'm not really well versed in the show in and of itself. But damn it, you just make me even more want to jump online and watch more episodes of that damn stupid thing. But I didn't know that the Power Rangers got their cue from stuff like that. That stuff I did not know, so that's interesting. All right, Selma McShave writes, have they de-aged any female actors? I don't know. That's a good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know. But that is a really good question. All right, final question is this. This comes to us from Christopher W. Hearn, who writes, please give us an Alita box office update. Also, what are your predictions for the movie post-theatrical release? Love the channel. Keep up the great work. Well, you can just go to Box Office Mojo and find out where it's at. You don't need me to tell you. You just go to boxofficemojo.com, look up the box office. You can get the update from it there. What are my predictions for it after the theatrical release? The movie still hasn't broke even, but I believe sometimes you can have a movie that doesn't break even or loses a little bit of money, and it still gets a sequel. I believe there's a good argument a producer can make to a studio as to why they should still go ahead and do a sequel to this. And I think there's a compelling argument to make. I think a lot of people enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed this movie. And I think you can make the case that with the amount of people seeing it, enjoying it, that if you do a sequel, you will get more people out to it than you did the first time around. Now, nothing guarantees that. But I think you can make that argument, and I think you can make it pretty compelling. And now that Alita is under Disney, I think Disney will be willing to roll the dice on I Do. So I'm going to take a wild guess. I don't know when, but I'm going to guess that we are going to get an Alita 2. I think at some point Disney will greenlight this. I think we will get this movie. I can't guarantee it, and I don't know when, but I believe we are going to get another movie. Okay. That will do it, guys, for today. We've gone just a little over 3 hours. That will do it for today's installment of Open Mic. Thank you so much, guys, for being here. Now, there are still a few questions we didn't have time to get. If I had like 15 more minutes, I'm sure I could get through them all, but I don't have 15 minutes. So, from Jinyuchi, Jethro, Melvin, all the way down. Don't worry, guys. If you sent in a super chat today, your question's getting answered in a video. It'll be in a companion video. Probably not later today because I got my wife's birthday festivities, but either tomorrow or Monday. Don't forget, tomorrow there's another open mic at 12 noon. Make sure you come and join us for that. I'll see if I can try to get that companion video done in the morning, though, before we do the new open mic. So again, don't worry. Your question got sent in. It's getting answered in a video. Just keep your eyes open for the next companion video. Guys, that'll do it for me for now. Thank you for being here with me this afternoon, spending some of your weekend with me, sending in all these great questions and topics for us to talk about, and also supporting the channel the way you guys have. Many, many thanks for that. Guys, heart, love, empathy, joy, everything from my heart to yours. Go out, watch some movies, have some good times today. Enjoy your weekend. Don't forget, I'll be back again tomorrow. That'll do it for now. My name's John Campea, and until our next video, guys, bye-bye.